Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. My name's James McCarthy.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
I'm Jody Kite.
I'm Brady Davis.
Alrighty, so we're back again. And Ethan, stop playing on your phone and tell us what you did.
I am not playing on my phone.
I see tap, tippity, tap.
Yes, I'm scrolling so I can get information as to what I can talk about.
That's Ethan. That's Ethan
on the
talk.
Podcast.
That's Ethan talk for playing Candy Crush. I get it.
You're not supposed to know that.
I know everything.
You're not supposed to tell the people, though.
Quick, what's your score?
I am God. Wrong button.
I am God.
No, I think it was right the first time.
It was.
No.
This is the Tony Khan button.
It's a little meta that God and the devil sounds the same.
That's very true.
It's a real statement on your religion.
We had to fire him, so I'm pulling double shifts now.
Okay.
It sucks, but what can you do? I need the medical.
It's weird that Tony Khan is also thrown in the mix.
Heaven and hell are short-staffed right now.
Well, I'm certain that Tony Khan thinks he sees God quite often.
So they have to outsource
Well, he doesn't
from other
blink, so
countries.
he probably does.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Or are you saying, so all I've got to do is, if I staple my eyelids open, I could see God like
or
a prophet.
do pounds of... Anyway, Ethan.
Allegedly.
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 So, a new video game came out recently that is very not great. The new South
There's a
Park,
lot of those.
Yeah. There's
new-
more of those than there should be.
Yeah.
South Park Snow Day came out for many platforms, and from everything that I've seen, it is an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Like I like, and Jay said this before we started recording. I like the idea that they're going into like 3D animation and 3D models, but it doesn't feel like it's a South Park game unless it's the 2D.
It doesn't feel like a modern South Park game. Let me let you know
I was
something.
about to say, this isn't the first time
There
went
was
to
a
3D.
first-person South Park game on PS1 and N64 where you urinated on a snowball and threw it at people.
Yeah, yellow
Now,
snowballs.
You could throw regular snowballs, but if you wanted to have more power, you peed on them, and then you threw them.
Of course, yes.
That game
that's
was
the logic.
terrible.
First-person shooter.
But
I did like the gun that shot a cow in the air, and then it landed on the person you were attacking, and then it crushed them inside the cow's anus.
It had moments.
Yeah.
But this game is supposed to be like a sequel to like the Stick of Truth, the Fractured But Whole, and it does not. From everything I've seen, like people playing it, magazines like reviewing it, does
Magazines? What the fuck is
Paper
that?
magazines.
like
Online magazines.
Online magazines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was this something that you were looking to maybe getting into, and just the sheer wave of it just kind of threw you off?
Like I enjoyed the Stick of Truth when it came out. I enjoyed Fractured But Whole. I got the DLC expansions on the Switch when they had like their spring sale, and so I played all of it. And I very much like South Park. It's just funny to me, and I enjoy the games, and I'm very disappointed with the new game because from all the hours of Stick of Truth trying to like complete everything, like tens of hours of gameplay as compared to Snow Day.
It's a funny way that you put that. Tens of hours.
Tens of hours.
Tens of
I
hours.
know. It's just funny.
As
Wait, we have
to,
a new thing for that.
From your lips to God's ears.
There you go. It's a little. That's a new one for the folks.
compared to the 4 to 6 hour gameplay of Snow Day. There's not really much worth it.
There's only 4 to 6 hours worth of story in it.
That's what I've seen.
Damn.
Oh, that would disappoint the shit out of
pretty
me.
bad.
Coming from
Damn.
2 RPGs, yeah, that ooh, I don't like that.
Even at a price tag of $30, I wouldn't even see that this is worth it.
Yeah.
So there's another game, or I should say, a collection of games, of 2 games that are remasters.
Just quick thing, and then you can fire away on all of this. Literally, you may fire when ready, perhaps. When when he mentioned in the pre-show that what we were going to go over, and you said you wanted to piggyback off that with something else, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Of course you
because,
did.
God damn it.
Because I wanted to buy it.
Yeah, no, and you didn't, right?
Nope,
All right,
I didn't buy it.
That is money well saved.
I waited for a review.
Yeah.
Jody, unleash hell.
So one of my favorite games from the original Xbox and PS2 era is both Star Wars Battlefront 1 and also Battlefront 2, which introduced the Jedi and heroes that you could unlock while you were playing them. Very fun third-person skirmish game where you could either like take different points of where the spawn points were in the game, or you could just kill everybody. And if you died, it was fine because you had as many dudes as you had left in your army. You know, you'd start like 50 versus 50 or whatever. Like you, as long as you like outpaced your enemy, no problem. And Battlefront 2, and of course this is the Battlefront 2 from 2005. They had a mode on there that you could play split screen with a co-op, a couch co-op with a friend. It was called like Intergalactic something.
Planetary, intergalactic.
Yeah. It was called Intergalactic Conquest.
No, sir.
Intergalactic Conquest, and that mode could go almost infinite forever. Because what would happen is like you and your opponent would fight for a planet. And like, let's just say indoor, you'd have like 5 different sections of indoor, and you would do one at a time. And whoever like conquered the whole planet, then you'd go to the next planet, and then you'd fight for that planet. And when you're done in the whole entire like area, you would go back and you could defend it like however many times. So you just keep going. So this remake comes out, and people online have been doing comparisons, right? Because the game doesn't look much different than the original. And that's fine when it's like a re-release like they've done before. Before the Final Fantasy remake, they did re-release Final Fantasy, like remastered somewhat. And it was just, they smoothed up the graphics a little bit. And they really didn't add anything much to the game. They didn't add anything to this game. In fact, people did comparisons online with the version of the original game, with the graphics turned as high as you could go on the original game, and they compared it to the new version of the game, and they either look similar or the old game looks better. Not only that, but they took modes out like the Intergalactic or Galactic. It's just Galactic Conquest. They took out the Galactic Conquest mode, so no couch co-op. That's not even. I'm not even touching the bad stuff. I'm about to get to that in a second. One, apparently, and this is probably going to be actual whenever it comes out. They stole a mod from someone to make part of this game.
That's funny.
They ripped it off. Now. Yeah, they stole somebody's mod apparently.
Allegedly.
The outside of everything else, outside of them just basically re-releasing these games without hardly anything and also taking stuff out. The game has, I think it's like a $40 price point. It's 60 gigs for whatever reason.
No. Real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
the way they updated the graphics in the thing, rather than just like kind of build it, they basically just here. Let me tape this on here, and as soon as they did that, 50 more gigs just appeared out of nowhere.
Nobody knows how to compress anything anymore. They had on launch day. This is like also like on top of everything else. On launch day, they had 3 working servers.
Jesus.
Oh no.
I think they had like the cap was under 100 people or around maybe 150 people that could play it at one time. So there are many people online that are just encouraging people just buy the original game. It's still on Steam. The original 2 games are on Steam, and you can play multiplayer on it.
Wow.
So for like $5. So do that. It's terrible.
And also,
That does sound terrible.
don't get South Park.
Don't get
Snow
South Park.
Day.
Yeah, there's
Don't-
there's 2
don't get that.
anti-recommends from travelers on the
Yes.
Omnibus.
Yeah. Don't waste your money
If you
or
see
your time.
these games walking down the street, you cross. Doesn't matter if you have to jaywalk to do it. You cross to the other side of the street so that you won't pass by them.
Yes.
These games will mug you.
Do illegal acts to avoid these
Yes.
games.
Speaking of bad,
Misdemeanor
Yeah.
illegal acts,
Yeah.
no felonies.
Yes.
speaking of bad games, so one more thing about a bad game. So currently, there's a sale like there almost always is on PlayStation. There's this quote unquote spring sale for PlayStation, and the Ultimate Gold Edition of this game is out, and it's normally $99, and it came out like a few months ago.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's $9.99.
Damn.
Back for Blood.
Yeah.
It's $10 for the Ultimate Edition.
Wow.
The crew that made Left 4 Dead went on to form Turtle Rock Studios and have created Evolve and Back for Blood. There is something to be whatever Steam does, whatever Valve does. There's a design ethos there when they're actually making games that makes incredible games, and those teams, if they ever spin off from there, they don't reach those heights again.
Right.
I look at Dota 2. I believe Dota 2, like I've heard some people call it the thinking man's MOBA. I believe I'll definitely say if you've played Dota 2 and you go to League of Legends, it's way easier for you to do that than go from League to Dota. There's a lot more going on in that design space in Dota 2.
Right.
I think if they had designed that outside of Valve's system, like if they had like been partnered to Activision, I don't think you have the same quality of game that comes out of that. I think Dota 2 is a very quality MOBA. I still prefer League of Legends full on there, but I can definitely appreciate there's more going on in that design space and in that game that you have to kind of be good at in order to be good at that game. Yeah. And I can appreciate that. I will not speak on the communities because I don't want to be. I'm going to get flamed just for making that statement. So yeah,
a lot of communities in general are tend to be toxic, gaming or otherwise.
Speaking of gaming,
let me clap on that real quick. I think the most vocal parts of them are more toxic. I think that the vocality of the toxicity I think goes higher than the hey, good job, man.
Yeah,
I think
that goes without saying.
I think that now with League, I can say from playing it, I feel it and I see it more than I do than I do see although I will say this, when I'm playing with my friends, it's like we at least are civil with one another, but it's also because sometimes we're close enough to punch. So there might also be that going on in there as well.
Right.
But I do think it's a very easily made but a kind of a dangerous broad statement to say it's all toxic. I think no. I think the toxicity is it's easy to be very vocal with the toxicity.
Right. No,
and it's harder to be positive with it, but I don't want to say that it's all negative.
No.
I think there's something to be said there.
I'm just saying, like, anytime you get a large group of people that are passionate about something, it could be a Harry Potter forum. You're going to have toxic people in that community. It's going to happen, you know. I'm not saying all people in those communities are toxic.
Okay, no, because
it's
in my brain. In my brain, I thought it was like the community. I thought the community is toxic.
No.
Okay,
there's like certain aspects.
There's certain aspects of every large community that's going to have that.
Yeah.
Okay,
especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Ethan, did you have anything else brought up?
Yes. So I have a weekly D&D game on Sundays with some good friends of mine. And
a few enemies, maybe.
Possibly
now.
Okay. Oh,
possibly
do tell.
So we are going through the very end of Lost Mines of Phandelver to go into the Shattered Obelisk.
Okay.
And the end of spoilers, I guess. The end of
the
end of the Lost Mines of Phandelver campaign is you fight a drow that also has 5 cave spiders at his command. And so, what the character that I'm playing is a Warforged Rune Knight, which basically I'm a robot that has the magical powers of the giants. So, like, all across my body and my weapons is like runes like carved into them, into my body, whatnot, and I can use magical elements from whatever runes I have incorporated in myself. So I could use stone giants might. I can have the mystical capabilities of cloud giants and whatnot.
Do you have the power to smell the blood of Englishmen?
No, I don't think that's available to me yet.
Do you have the power to make adjustments concerning how many extra people showed up to your game?
That's a different topic.
That's a DM.
Do you have the power
That's a DM
to
topic.
move you? History of Wonder Boy. No.
So we're in the final fight, and I've taken a few good whacks at the big bad, and I see that a spider is attacking one of my allies, and DM goes, "Okay, does a 25 hit?" They go, "Yes." What I'm able to do as a rune knight is I can invoke my cloud giant rune, which will essentially like open like a cloud portal from wherever someone is attacking that I can visibly see, and I can redirect that damage to any target other than the attacker. So me, after I've taken a few good hits on the bad guy, he's on his last breath. I see the spider attacking my ally, open a portal right in front of the drow. The spider attacks the drow and the drow dies. Me, I'm thinking that's a pretty fucking cool thing, but it kind of slightly made the DM mad a little bit because I don't think she was expecting that the big finale fight to end that quickly.
Let me insert one.
Yeah, because I have a question as well.
Because
maybe the same question.
Well, the thing is, like we heard this story before you showed
Yes.
up.
Oh, okay.
And the it's cool the way he paced it out because it's more interesting that way. But what's even more interesting is when you find out that there are 3 extra people at the table that weren't going to be there. So how many people were at your table? Not counting the DM.
When we first played started this campaign, it was 4 players.
Okay, so that's average.
Yes. We now have a total of 6 players.
Okay.
So that's
Right.
2 additional players that hit very fucking hard.
What level around are you guys?
Level 4, level
Okay.
5.
Okay. You're starting to hit to the mid stride of the first tier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got 2 more players than you should have
Yes. And so
for this fight.
So a lot of the fights are going a lot quicker than they have been recently. I'm still enjoying the game. I'm enjoying it a fuck ton.
Sure.
It's just a lot of things compiling up against one another that's kind of making it a little difficult to enjoy.
Okay, so my question here for the DM, does she keep the character sheets or does everyone keep their character sheets?
Everyone keeps the character sheets.
Everyone keeps their character sheets.
Yes.
So this is the reason why I keep character sheets, and honestly, like going back to college, which is when this started, we actually had to keep character sheets because we had a friend living in another building that would play games with us, and he would constantly like redo his stats. And it was World of Darkness stuff. So his Scantron sheet always looked different every game. So it's like, okay, no, we can't have this. But now it is become more of a matter of, okay, I'm going into this. What do they have that they can use?
Right.
And what it's like. And sometimes, like for instance, in that instance, I would not have changed anything about that. That is a cool thing to do, and it's a good way to end the fight. Now that being said, double the spiders.
Yeah.
More eels.
You add something.
Too soon.
You
Too soon.
add
No, that's okay.
something.
It's okay. No, anytime I
definitely
think
add
of more,
something.
I go to more eels. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But
You have to make adjustments when there are more people. If you're just going by the book and you're going by just the challenge rating, which is always, not always correct.
Yeah.
Half the time it isn't even correct. But when you're doing that and you're not making adjustments for extra people being there, like how long have these extra 2 people been playing?
Like
How many sessions do you think?
2-3 sessions.
Okay, well, I mean that's fair. Maybe this specific instance will like show this DM that they need to make adjustments somehow.
What it was originally going to be is it's us 4, and we get a text in our group chat saying like, "Hey, would anyone have any opposition to another mutual friend joining in the game?" At the time, we were only expecting 1 additional player.
Yeah, that's why you can't invite everybody. You can't invite extra people.
So
sometimes
we were originally going to go to.
even then, like I don't think there's any problem with inviting the people. It's just recognize the fact that you now have to really pay attention to what's going on.
Well, they invited one person and a +1 showed up. Is what
Okay.
he's trying to get to.
Okay, cool. At that point, DMs should be either yes or no. And if it's yes, now you're dealing with the consequences.
right. Yeah.
And if it's no, that can alienate a friend. You never want to do that. But like I was under the impression X, and you provided Y.
Right.
I can accept X.
Right.
I may not be able to accept Y.
Yeah.
So if anyone's mad at you, they need to get over that. And if anyone's mad at the DM, they need to get over that too. Things like that happen. You mentioned, and Jody brought up an interesting point. CRs really started in 3rd ed. Other than that, it was like this monster gives this much XP whenever you kill it.
Yeah.
We used to go on spider hunts in AD&D just to get like, oh, we need like another 200 XP. Let's kill like 40 spiders and see
Grind
if we can get
them
that
out,
up there.
yeah.
Just grind. And I don't mean like giant cave spiders. Like, oh, there's a spider, smush. That's 1 XP. Keep going. But CRs were meant for a 4-player party, and I would go even so far to say this: a specific 4-player party.
Yeah.
Fighter, cleric, wizard, rogue.
Yep.
If you showed up with paladin, druid, bard, sorcerer, those CRs didn't match. And I'm not saying that they were weaker or stronger. It's like, for instance,
Right.
if any undead is in there and you don't have a cleric, you've lost a huge piece of that CR that was
Right.
like balancing everything out. I think, yeah, if you're adding people, you have to up the challenge. You have to.
And in 3.5, they made adjustments, assuming that the characters had at least at a certain point 1 magical item
Yeah.
or
And
something.
also, they also presumed that everybody was at the same level. AD&D did not do that,
Right.
because the levels themselves were like, to be a fighter, you'd hit level 10 real quick. Wizard, you might still be playing now and just got to level 10 because of how XP was for wizards, which makes sense from a logical standpoint. It's like, how much can you learn from swinging a sword, and that's all you do is you have a sword and shield. How much you like?
Right.
If you changed up the weapons more often, I could see, okay, there may be something to that. But wizards, it's like you have to bend reality to your whim. That's at very least a correspondence course. I'm just saying. But yeah, there you go.
I think
sorry for old men DM coming down from the mountain.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I think bending reality to your very whim is a lot more different than throwing a stick at someone.
I think bending the rules to make a balanced game is something that your DM's got to learn sometime soon.
I wouldn't say you have to bend the rules. Just look at what you've got, and then adjust accordingly. Like maybe
that's
maybe
bending the
add,
rules.
Maybe no, it's just adding more to the like. You're not actually changing the rules of the game.
Not the rule, not the fundamental
You're
rules.
adjusting the encounter to the add 2
that's
face
what I meant.
spiders. Add spiders that can now blink in and out of there along with the regular ones. Yeah, now you've added a different thing to it.
Regardless of the things that are currently going on and possibly will continue to go on, I'm enjoying the game still.
That's good.
There you
That's
go.
good.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
And that's me.
There you go. All right, Jody, you're up next, brother.
So I watched a handful of terrible movies over the weekend.
It seems just to be like what you do every weekend now.
It's a lot. It's a lot of weekends of bad movies.
You need to come in like more enthusiastic about that, guys. You cannot imagine the shit I watched this weekend.
I mean, if my sciences hadn't been kicking my ass the past few days, I'd probably be enthusiastic right now. I watched a movie called MILFs versus Zombies.
Jesus Christ.
No. I was driving him to the shop, and he said that. I'm like, hang on, repeat that, please, because I don't want to think I heard
What?
Okay,
Yeah, in that tone of voice.
there
Yeah.
you go.
And it's on Tubi, go figure.
yeah, you didn't even have to, like, that goes without saying. Of course.
The unofficial official streaming partner of Travelers on the
Yeah.
Omnibus.
It's another one of those films where they have people in their mid to late 30s playing younger characters.
Yeah, of course.
There is the only thing I could really talk about in this movie that actually is coherent is that their dialogue choices were really out off the wall and interesting. At one point, there was a thankfully mostly clothed sex scene where this blonde white trash girl told her boyfriend to fuck her monkey pussy.
Wow. That's a way to put that.
What?
Exactly.
Okay.
So after watching that, me and my friend
Brady, I'm offended. What?
we watched the first 30 minutes of Ouija Shark.
Just going through all the shark movies.
All the shark movies on Tubi.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
could only handle about 30 minutes of that because
That's a good chant, though. Ouija shark, Ouija shark, Ouija. Okay, never mind.
and then
okay,
then
Nah,
watched
you're
a
alone in that one, Jack.
okay.
70s B-sploitation movie
B-exploitation.
called The Bees.
You know we have an infestation of honeybees that
That's
could
what I've
sting us
heard.
at any time.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great little note to come into.
It's around this time where the whole like fear mongering about the Africanized and Europeanized honeybees are starting to cross
Killer bees.
Trying to make the killer bees happen to
Not
make
the bees.
to make them to make the magical royal jelly that everybody wants from these killer
Yeah.
bees. And so I'm not going to go through this movie. I'm just going to say one thing, Jay, and I want to hear your honest answer to what you think happens here.
Okay.
So after several scenes of boardrooms / bee attacks on parades,
Okay.
the last 5 minutes of the movie, the bees have completely covered New York City. There's like 5 minutes left in the movie. The main professor guy is talking to all these government officials. He's like, listen, and he explains what's happening and how he needs to fix it and how they can fix it. And they go, you're wrong. That doesn't make any sense. We're kicking you out. We're gonna have to forcibly get you out of here if we need
Did
to.
Ghostbusters steal from this?
No. About this time, as they're about to throw him out of the boardroom, all the windows burst and like millions of bees just flood into this office. And he goes, wait, stop running. What happens next?
Orgy.
No. Try again.
That's my only guess.
He goes, I told you. They've learned how to understand English. We just have to communicate with them. We have to make sure that the bees understand that we're completely compliant with sharing the earth with them now. And then the movie goes, the end.
No. Here's what happened. Okay, we need 10 flamethrowers, and we need like some tanks, and we need some army uniforms. We have 3 cents left in the budget.
Hey,
We're cutting it.
Jay,
We're cutting it early, gentlemen.
Jay, the bees already got to it.
The bees already got to it.
I was like, oh,
already
this
got
is
to
the 70s industrial grade pesticide. That's what they go
See,
with.
No.
my original guess
talking
was
to the bees.
See,
Yeah,
I
talking to the
thut
bee.
70, so I thought orgy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Straight
it's
up.
50-50.
Yeah.
Industrial grade, you either get
That's the
industrial grade
wasp women.
pesticide or you get orgies.
My original guess was they destroy every single fire hydrant, and then it all got multiple geysers of water shoot up because bees can't fly when they're wet.
Not the bees.
They are in my eyes.
Not the bees.
Not the bees.
Was that mescaline Wicker Man?
That was mescaline Wicker Man.
All right, there we go.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it, man.
That's it.
After that bee movie, yeah, it would be done too.
And then Jerry Springer shows up.
Brady, bring the mood up.
Okay. So, yeah. When I was young, growing up, a cartoon that I watched religiously, and this is what like really helped this and the Spider-Man animated series really kickstarted my love for superheroes and comics, and in this case Marvel comics. I have very vivid memories of every Saturday morning watching the new episodes, and every day after school watching this and Batman the Animated Series, and I believe Animaniacs was also on at that same in that same block.
The pilot for this show, the first 2 episodes, aired on Friday night at 7
wow.
o'clock on Fox.
I probably saw him.
I was there.
I probably saw him the next day.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I do remember like watching
Yeah.
them. So this is X-Men the Animated Series, and I love this show. And good news, guys, it's coming back. They're doing it again. We got X-Men 97. So I watched the first 2 episodes of X-Men 97, and I really fucking like them. I think that it is really fucking good. I think they do a good job with continuing the story, and they do some really cool shit. For everybody who said that that Cyclops is a bitch, fuck you. That's only because you watched the live movies and they made Cyclops a bitch.
By killing him off screen in the first 5 minutes of the third
Well,
film.
he constantly, it was like, okay, we can't have Cyclops be the cool guy because we have Wolverine, and Wolverine's the cool guy, and we really only have room for one cool guy. So Cyclops has to be the wet blanket.
I don't know. X-Men 97. It's changed my mind on that.
It should, because Cyclops is a badass, and he gets to be a badass, and everybody gets to be a fucking badass. Everybody. Storm, Jesus Christ, gets to do some really cool shit.
I didn't know Jesus Christ was a mutant.
I mean,
That
probably.
explains a lot.
Yeah.
the desert scene.
I
with
literally think in
Storm.
Marvel he might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene in the desert where they're fighting some sentinels, and they're holding their own, but they're not doing great. And Cyclops goes, "Bring the thunder," and then you see Storm walking. They're in the desert. She's walking through the desert and making lightning strike and turning the sand into glass, and then she creates a glass tornado to take out the sentinels.
That sounds pretty badass.
Yeah.
I think Cyclops said give him the weather updates.
Yeah, give him the weather. He says something like,
But he said it's so cool.
they're flying there, and like they get attacked by the Blackbird gets attacked by a sentinel, and everybody flies out of the thing. So all the flying people like start gathering people up. Rogue gets a couple of people. Storm catches somebody.
What does Cyclops
What
do?
does Cyclops do? He's just chilling. He's just falling. He's like, "Good work, guys. I'll see you on the ground." And he starts flying down and uses his optic blast to slow himself down and does a superhero landing.
Hell
and then
yeah.
goes, "To me, my X-Men." And they all fall and they all land with the intro that everybody fucking knows going
Right.
off, and you're like, "Holy shit!"
What a way to start a show.
And that's the first episode.
Oh my god.
And the second episode has Magneto.
Yes.
And Magneto also gets one of the coolest fucking speeches I've ever seen on a show ever. Like, period. Like, it's so fucking cool. I rewatched that scene like three or four times. Like,
I am probably going to go home and watch it.
I probably will too, because I've psyched myself up so much. Like, it is so cool. And they're doing interesting things. They're doing some interesting. It looks like they're going to do the people who they were when the original show came out. They were fairly accurate to the comic storylines. They changed a few things here and there, but they were pretty accurate. And I think that they're going to do it this time. It looks like they're going to do this episode 2 is basically the trial of Magneto. If you know anything about that, it looks like they're going into, and this is kind of some spoilers if you know what it is, but you're going to see it as soon as like it happens. You're going to know, oh, I know where they're going. They're probably going to do the Inferno storyline. So that's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to where it goes. Like, the animation is a little wonky. It feels a little off sometimes, but
I dig it. I everything I've seen, I dig.
but it's not, that doesn't kill it. Like, the character work is really good. It's still kind of corny, like the old one was. Like, they're doing a really good job. So if you like X-Men, I don't even think necessarily you really have to know, like, you have to watch the entire series, because I'll be honest, there are blank spots in the original series. I watched as much as humanly possible, but I didn't watch everything.
There were some filler episodes, but it wasn't as bad as, like, say, G.I. Joe, for example.
So yeah, if you like X-Men, if you like Marvel, like, this is something that's like to get excited about with Marvel from now.
Hopefully they might like redo the Spider-Man show from the 90s as well.
They're talking about it because this is like their most watched like animated show, and it might be their most watched show on on Disney Plus now. So there are talks of, hey, maybe we can continue that show, because that show kind of ended on a cliffhanger. Because Spider-Man Unlimited doesn't count.
Definitely not.
But yeah, it's great so far. I'm loving it. I'm interested to see where they go. I'm loving the characterization. Like, all the characters that I love, like Magneto and Cyclops are two of my favorite, like, X-Men. Nightcrawler's probably my favorite X-Men, but those are two of my favorite.
I've always been Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
I'm a simp for Gambit.
I like Gambit too. He was one of my favorites. Nightcrawler, I liked Gambit a lot because he was in the show a lot.
Right.
But Nightcrawler had like 1 or 2 episodes. I think.
He wasn't in it a lot, but when he was in it, it was impactful.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler and Beast.
Beast is good too. Beast is great.
Oh yeah, Beast is awesome.
Storm is like everybody gets to be really cool.
The voice of the actor who's the voice of Beast from the X-Men 90s series was the Canadian trucker that meets meets Rogue and Wolverine. Like that voice.
Huh.
Yeah.
Really?
That's that
Huh.
yeah. That
That's
always
cool.
that always kind of like in the original Bryan Singer
Yeah.
X-Men movie.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah,
neat.
if you like X-Men, especially if you watched X-Men, there's a real strong nostalgia for you. You probably already watched it, but like if you haven't, definitely check it out if you have Disney Plus, like because it's great. I'm loving what they're doing with it. I'm loving. I'm really interested in where they're gonna go with it. So,
The episodes are what, 25 minutes or something?
yeah, they're like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a quick watch, but it's really cool. So there's that. I started reading a new book, but I'll talk more about that when I actually get it finished. I watched a couple of movies. One is Dream Scenario. This is
How is it?
A Nicolas Cage movie where, for some unexplained reason, he's just this professor who's kind of
In everyone's dreams.
frumpy, but he just starts showing up in everybody's dreams. And at first, it's just like he's just in the background and he doesn't really do anything or interact with you. They're just like, and he starts getting noticed, and people are like, "Hey, you're the dude that was in my dreams. What the fuck?"
You're the dream man.
Yeah. And he starts kind of using that to, become kind of a celebrity type thing. And then it gets weirder. Like it's one of those,
Man.
I think it pairs really well with Beau is Afraid, because it's a movie about a man who things are happening to him. And
These are not Yorgos Lanthimos, right?
No,
This is
I don't know the person who did this one. This is he's not a guy that I know.
Christopher Borgley.
Yeah, I don't know. I might know some stuff that he's done, but I don't know who he is. I'm not familiar with that guy. Yeah, Yorgos did Poor Things. This came out about the same time.
I saw a trailer for his new movie with Emma Stone too.
I haven't watched the trailer yet. That I'm whatever it is, I'm probably excited about it because I like him. But
Borgley did Sick of Myself in 22, Drib in 2017.
I don't know. I have no idea what it is.
I've never seen.
So this is
any of
probably
those.
like his
like
most
big
known,
debut.
Yeah, his big debut. This might not be the first thing that he's done, but it's
Norwegian
close to
film
it.
director and
Yeah,
screenwriter.
that sounds about right. But yeah, it's just shit is happening to this guy that he cannot control and cannot understand, and it's all confusing to him. It's a weird movie. It was pretty good. It's worth watching if you can watch it for free. I didn't hate it. It's just a weird movie. Nicolas Cage doesn't go like super Nicolas Cage on it, but it is like, it's still an interesting movie.
But
Interesting
imagine if
premise.
he did.
Yeah. So I watched that, and then still trying to catch up on my Oscar noms. I watched Anatomy of a Fall, which this is a basically it's like a courtroom drama for the most part. It's this family, husband, wife, and their son and their dog, and that is important because for reasons I'll mention later. Live in like this chalet in France, like in this kind of remote village in the mountains. They're both writers, and one day the husband falls out of a window and he dies, and kind of the only other person who was there to witness anything was the son, who again is like mostly blind, and the wife gets accused of killing him. And you're kind of going through, did she do it? Did she not do it? You're going through like the lawyers figuring stuff out. You're kind of seeing some of the cops doing some things, and then a lot of it is just the trial, and it takes place in France. It's partially in French, partially in English. The wife is German, but she speaks a little French. So it goes back and forth with that. It's a pretty interesting movie. It's kind of a just a courtroom drama mostly, but it just does it really well. Sarah Hewler is the wife. She does a really good job. She's also in Zone of Interest, which comes out this weekend on Max, I believe. I'm definitely gonna watch that. But like, she's really good in it. This has probably the best dog actor ever, and I say that with no joke. Like, like at first you're like, oh, that's a cute dog, and then there's like a scene where you're like, holy shit, that dog can fucking act. Yeah, he got invited to the Oscars and he was there.
Yeah.
They did a little thing where after I'm Just Ken, they show him clapping. They have his but yeah, really cute dog, great dog actor. It's a really good movie. I think everybody does a really good job. Like I said, it's a courtroom drama, so that's not like my favorite type of thing. That's why I wasn't in like a big hurry to go watch this movie.
Right.
But it's still really good. I liked it a lot. This is like Sarah Hewler she was one of the nominations for Best Actress. I think she deserved that nomination. She's really good in this. Yeah, it's interesting because you get to see how we see like American courtroom dramas all a lot. I think that you would be interested in this one, Jay, because you get to see like how the French courtroom does, and because they do it weirdly, like because they'll bring somebody up, and then they'll talk to them about it, and then the accused person's just sitting there and they're asking, well, what do you say about this? Basically, like it's really weird how they do things, but it's interesting because it's a different system, and you're like, oh man, that doesn't feel like something you could do in an American courtroom. So like, but I mean, and I don't even know how like accurate. I would like to watch a video or something about like how accurate this is to like French. Like if Legal could get like a French lawyer and they could watch this and talk about like, hey, what's the differences in this? That would be a really cool video. It's just he would probably have to get a French lawyer, and he probably doesn't know any French lawyers. So, but yeah. If you like courtroom dramas, it's interesting. It's really good acting. There's nothing. It doesn't do like anything new, but it just does. It's interesting. There's a lot of like ambiguity in the movie. Like you never really find out like if she did it or not. It's kind of come to your own conclusions of it. So it's really interesting. So there's that, and then just today, a short came out from the Spider-Verse. They did a Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. Little short and it's on YouTube. It's called The Spider Within. Just really quick, it's pretty interesting. It's just a little short thing, and it kind of deals with how a teenager who had superpowers would have to deal with like anxiety and him dealing with that. It's just a little quick thing, and it was nice. The whole thing is like 7 minutes, but I think the actual like video is like 5 minutes because there's like a ridiculous amount of credits. But that was pretty cool. So that's on YouTube for free. If you need a fix of like Spider-Verse stuff, there's a little bit of something to tide you off, because it's not going to be till like next year before it possibly even comes out. So that's what I've been doing.
Jay, how about you? What you been up to?
All right. I have to apologize to the gentleman because I remembered the second thing I was going to talk about. So now I'm going to talk about it first as a way of an apology and figure out how that is on your own time. But we mentioned this documentary very briefly last week, and I was quote unquote, not even quote unquote, I was waiting for more episodes of this thing to come out, but all the episodes are out for it, and that is Max's Quiet on Set. Which was, I think, was an investigative discovery miniseries of about 4 episodes. I'm going to be very brief about it. I thought it was, for the most part, a good documentary. In order to maintain their narrative, they allow someone to kind of get off without really going over their own kind of, I'm going to be very charitable and say mistakes. because if it would have added additional questions, I don't think the documentary was ready to answer. For what it was ready to answer, I thought it presented a very solid, again, for lack of a better word, case against Nickelodeon in the 90s. I would also, at this time, mention the YouTuber Quentin Hoover from Quentin Reviews, who I think about a day or two ago dropped, I can't remember the specific name of the video, but it's Why We Don't Talk About Dan Schneider. Quentin did an extensive miniseries of videos, some of them going 9 hours in length on YouTube about the what initially he calls, just to kind of bracket everything, is the Nickelodeon expanded universe, which basically were all these shows that Dan Schneider created that have these things that kind of tie in actors who play different roles and different things. Like a bit actor in one is the star in another one, and kind of goes through that entire history there. And he was the reason why I ended up going out and getting Jeanette McCurdy's book, because I wanted to read her words for himself, which again is fantastic. I think he did a fantastic job in the series of it. There are some points that are going to bristle against people in Quentin's 2 hours on Dan Schneider. And the reason why he didn't talk about Dan Schneider was basically like, if I talk about Dan Schneider and bring all this up, then I have to bring up all this other stuff, which was gone into in Quiet on Set. The one point I think he made that I think was depressing, but at the same time, the truest thing in the world. If Dan Schneider had not been put into and then made into that position, we can't say with any level of certainty that what happened to those children and to those adults. The one thing about Quiet on Set is they also go into the abuse adults took, particularly women writers on the set. Again, it was, for what it did and what it encompassed, it did a very good job of that, Quiet on Set. But if we didn't have him, we can't say that another person in that same spot would have, one, not necessarily done better, wouldn't have necessarily done the same, or possibly could have done worse. We don't know that. We only know the history. And I think going outside of anything else, it's like if we put this other person in, well, what other problems may have arranged from that? There's a level of fatalism that I think Quentin acknowledged in his video, and that the Quiet on Set people don't, and the fact that we're only focusing on this. This is what happened under this one spot, and how, like, every evil and bad thing, Dan Schneider. And if we just focus on Dan Schneider, now Dan Schneider's gone. Well, the problem's gone, so there's no more problems at all. No.
Yeah.
No, there is a problem inherent in the system itself.
Yeah.
And yes, we can point our fingers at bad actors, and we should definitely make sure that those bad actors don't work in there again, because they've shown what they have when they have power. But it's the system itself that needs to be looked at and figure out ways to fix the system, or break the system and put a new system in place.
Yeah, shut down the studio.
Yeah, I didn't agree with the first part of it, but the logic that it leads to, I definitely agree with. It's a system that created or allowed somebody like Dan Schneider to basically run amok. That's what needs to be addressed.
Too.
Yeah, unchallenged. That's what needs to be addressed. You need to change that. It's a systemic problem that begot a specific problem that leads to one person, but it's just going to probably perpetuate that one type of person.
And please let me stress something real quick, and Quentin has to do that in his video too. I'm not trying to forgive Dan Schneider a single thing he did.
Fuck that guy.
What I'm just saying is the system needs to be looked at. We can point at actors all we want, but if we're not doing anything to fix the system, we're doing just as much disservice to the next generation of children, and again, even adults that are having to work in that system.
Yeah. That's it's a documentary that I'm glad exists, but I will probably never watch.
I'm not watching it
because while like a lot of the stuff in the 90s I kind of grew up with, I didn't have a lot of access to Nickelodeon, but I knew it through either osmosis or which little I could catch with it. But there's also like my daughter watches a lot of those shows when
we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Let me say, I just don't want to like. I eventually do want to read Jeanette McCurdy's book because it is like from a single person,
right?
But I don't particularly ever want to watch that one. But yeah, I don't even remember where I was going with that. But yeah, I'm glad it exists. I'm never going to watch it.
I will say this: if you choose to watch this, when I was watching this, it was late at night. I'm a night owl typically, so this was my regular waking time. And I was putting together models for our Age of Sigmar stuff, and I'm watching that, and I'm like, it hit like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had one episode left, and I had to watch that last episode because if I sat on everything I had seen up to that point and not had any closure on that, I would. It's 4 hours with all episodes in total. Do it in one sitting because I swear to God, if you let this sit in your brain for any longer without any kind of resolution to it, it's gonna fuck you up. It just is. It just is. I respect it. I do recommend it. I do think they forgive a few things in order to be able to complete their narrative, but I think the narrative overall is still solid. And so I do give it a recommendation for Quiet on Set if you want to go down that road.
I remember a couple of years ago, my daughter we were watching something and she was like, hey, I saw this thing about like a talent agency where you could like like possibly be on some of these like Disney shows or Nickelodeon shows, audition for them. And inside I was like, fuck no. Because most of these, like this was like before this is before Jeanette McCurry's book came out and all this, but I was like, these kids don't get treated the best.
No.
So yeah, that's not gonna happen. But I had to be like, honey, like you don't even like. I spent some time and I looked at it, and it probably was legit. But I was like, I just don't know like if this is even legit or anything. Right. And oftentimes they will, this is kind of like they'll
scam you out of some money.
They'll scam you out of some money and stuff like this. Yeah. So I'm not cool with this. And I'm gonna talk to your mom about it, but yeah, I don't think this is gonna be some. And she was like, okay. I think she was a little disappointed, but but inside I wanted to be like, oh fuck no, you're never doing shit like this. I'm sorry if this is your dream, but like you're not gonna have this dream.
I remember when they had radio announcements for local auditions for an upcoming Nickelodeon show in Mobile.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing those on the radio all the time.
So yeah,
every once in a while they do. I'd hear some for the mall here. You could come to the mall.
Oh yeah,
but it's like
Talent Scout. Yeah.
First of all, like I wanted to be like, oh honey, like first of all, you're probably not going to like star in anything. Like the chances of that are very small. You will be like a bit actor, and you will probably get treated. You probably won't get treated quite as bad as some of these some of the main kids, but you'll still be treated pretty badly. So like, no. So yeah, like all that to say, like I'm never gonna watch that shit, but like I'm glad they exist. It needs to be told. Like everybody needs to know, like fuck this guy.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I guess to bring a little bit of levity back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Whiskey and Wrestling West Coast. Because I watched Monday Night Raw and I was thoroughly sports entertained.
So was I.
This is one of the best Raws I have seen in a long time. Like, I don't want to go to the hyperbole, like the best Raw ever, but this was so good.
Real quick, can I petition for us to be Whiskey and Wrestling Red and Black?
That would be more on theme.
Yeah. I like it.
Because we're the cooler people.
I'm gonna meet you in the middle. We're Whiskey and Wrestling Wolfpack.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. We're gonna okay. Yeah. So welcome
to
Ethan.
That means we're the Red and Black brand.
Yeah. We're W and WWP.
Yes.
So just the way it is. But there we go. But yeah, no, this Monday Night Raw had everything that I want from a Monday Night Raw. I didn't feel the 3 hours, and that's the first time I haven't felt those 3 hours in a long time.
And usually when there's there's so many promos on this show, considering that we're like 2 weeks out from WrestleMania. That Cody's like, I don't know why I'm out here. I don't know what I'm gonna say.
I was eating up every little thing Drew McIntyre did.
Oh, that whole
thing. First of all, there are people reacting online to Punk went into business for himself, and he's chaos and everything. It's like everybody in that was reacting naturally and normally, and that felt like something real.
Apparently, Brady, they had an outline, and they could say pretty much whatever they wanted to.
That's good.
Which is what happened. That's what Drew McIntyre took a shot on The Rock by saying, "Hey, Punk, keep it PG."
Yeah.
So, one thing that I feel is getting lost. There was this match between Ricochet and JD McDonough.
That I was going to mention.
Holy
I saw a clip of that.
That was really
Like,
good.
the promos were good. The wrestling was good on this show. Like, I have no problem. Dominic Mysterio
Yes.
got punched in the face.
she-
Like
she
she
punched.
clocked him.
That was a live fucking round.
Yeah.
I
saw
thought,
that.
like,
Shit.
when it happened, I was like, did she just punch the shit out
Yes.
of him?
Yeah, she
and
just
then they
punched
get
the
back
shit out
from
of him.
commercial,
Yes.
and these motherfuckers never do this shit, and showed that in slow motion.
No,
Yeah.
that's the thing that Pat McAfee's been doing. Like slow it down. Like do telestrator shit
Right.
on it.
They
It's
have.
fucking
But they
amazing.
normally don't do that. But
This
they did it
is-
for that.
I'm no longer cautiously optimistic. I am optimistic for this WrestleMania, knowing full well this is going to end up one of two ways.
Right.
Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 7. Yeah, it was 7. No, 6.
6.
Hulk Hogan
It was 6.
Ultimate Warrior WrestleMania 6.
Uh-huh.
Or Hulk Hogan WrestleMania, or right, Hulk Hogan versus Sting at Starrcade 97.
Right.
It's either going to be like they built this up perfectly, they planned it out great, the match was sketched out for the people to maximize what they're doing in the match,
Right.
and it's going to be great. Or there's supposed to be a slow count and there isn't, and so now Hulk Hogan looks like he was screwed over by Sting, who's been a babyface for a year because he got screwed over a year ago.
Right.
Like, it's going to be one of two ways. I'm hoping it. I'm firmly in. I believe it's going to be column A, but I do. It might be column B. So I'm setting myself up for a heartbreak. But good God, everything about this. The way they had The Rock come out and it looked like he teleported in.
Yeah.
And just the
I've seen
lighting
the
and everything.
entrance does look
it's,
really
It's
cool.
amazing. Like, they're doing such an exceptional job. The loss of Kevin Dunn has been the greatest positive I have witnessed in the last month, in the last 3 months in this
I've
thing.
seen little clips where they've done like really interesting like camera movements and stuff like that.
Well, camera shots and like one angle is like finishing and walking off as another angle is coming in, and then they pick up on that and they're
Yeah.
doing that. Like it's more alive, it's vibrant, and it's not 50 fucking cuts.
And they're also taking in consideration like fan reactions with stuff, because now we have Chad Gable in the background with Sami Zayn, and he's talking
Yeah.
about you've got to change your game up, and if you
Yeah.
want to, I can help you do that. Like, that's only because Chad got over in that match like a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, right? So
Chad has been quietly over since his match with the original match with Gunther. Which natural talent will eventually win out, in my opinion, if you give it enough chance to.
I
if
think
you
Chad
give it enough
Gable is
chance
like
to.
one of the most underrated like wrestlers.
He
that they have.
he would get like back in the day. You'd remember people getting like mini pushes where they get an angle push for a pay-per-view,
Yeah.
and then after that, nothing.
Well, he was able to recover from what was the stupid name that they gave
Shorty
him?
G.
Shorty G.
Yeah.
Yep.
They gave him Shorty G, and
Yeah.
and that didn't like
That didn't
that
bury
slowed him down, but it didn't like absolutely bury him to where there was
Can
no
we
coming
stop
back.
saying they and say the true evil?
I mean, yeah,
That was a Vince
not.
McMahon creation.
yeah.
the paragon of good virtue. as
Oh
CM
yeah,
Punk
which
Yeah.
mentioned.
man, they were all firing live rounds at one another.
chose you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I'm the chosen one. Who chose you?
Yeah.
What paragon of virtue? I dare you to have the balls to say his name.
Yeah.
It's
Cut to Drew's face. He's
like,
like,
Drew's like, I've been winning most of these. I'm done on that one. And then Punk just goes, boo this man, just boo him. It was great. And thank God Seth comes out. I mean
Right.
this in the Seth is the world champion. They're going to have a world championship fight. They should be doing this. Everything was great.
Right.
I loved that segment, and people are like, they went. It was total chaos. I can't
No.
believe it's like that's fucking clickbait.
not
Shut
only,
the fuck
not
up.
only was
Yeah.
it not total chaos, but it also showed later on in the show that Seth has two angles, and those characters are completely different from each other,
Yes.
depending on what the angle is.
Yes.
I'm just saying, I'm loving the Drew McIntyre shirts right now. I'm eating them
Yeah.
up.
I bought one. You need to buy one. You need to buy one.
I never had to
bought
put
one
somebody
in front
else's
of me.
name on a
my
T-shirt to sell it.
Yeah.
Proceeds to take it off with
Yeah.
the gravestone.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still angry at Punk for the shit he did in AEW,
Yeah.
but he's slowly starting to win me back over a
You
little
know
bit.
who also reportedly is angry about that as well? Tony Khan.
Tony Khan.
Except he's angry at Jungle Boy.
Right? Yeah, because it's
Well-
all Jungle Boy's fault
Yeah.
that happened.
Well-
We think it could be all a work.
That's probably a
don't-
work because he's in New Japan calling himself the scapegoat,
Right,
and
right.
cutting promos about
Yeah.
that. So
Also,
like,
Tony Khan doesn't think that far ahead.
probably not.
no.
I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
At all.
How dare you, Ethan?
Moving on.
Allegedly.
He likes to take nice deep breaths.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Nice
Great.
deep breaths and
There
never
you go.
blink.
He'll never be
the-
Tony Montoya.
One of the best like Chekhov's guns that also showed off Chekhov's bullets and then later fired the thing with the whisper in Cody's ear.
Yes.
And then what did you whisper him? Ask Cody. Cody, what did he whisper to you? So, he made a promise that he can't keep. And then
Right.
at the end, it's like, oh no, just fucking dog walk him
Right.
outside in 50-degree windy Chicago rain, beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes, bloodying him up.
There's
Oh,
moments
my
where
God.
like me and Phil were watching that, and I'm like, is he gonna throw him into over that bridge or whatever that is?
I think you were supposed to expect
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and they didn't do that for
Right.
that reason. Now, so one of the things that is now being rumored is when they were doing the shots, they were out there, they panned it, and the shot is perfect. It is The Rock standing over Cody, beating him up, and in the background is one of the trucks, the production trucks,
Yeah.
and it's Stone Cold and John Cena.
Yeah.
and
There are pictures
Yeah,
on it.
I've seen the picture, yeah.
Perfectly
Yeah.
lit. That's the part.
Right.
It's like if they're playing with us good, that's how you do
Trish
it.
Stratus was also on that
Yeah.
at the very end of it, and that truck is different from the other 3 WrestleMania trucks that have like the people that are going to be on the show.
And it's definitely different from Cody's bus, which has a vodka advertisement on the back.
yeah,
course,
of course.
There you go.
Cody took like 14 bus shots.
Yeah.
He got thrown into an 18-wheeler a lot.
You can see the dog in one of the shots.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
It's like he's watching the owner get beat up. It's like, oh my God.
oh, no.
Poor
They're going
Pharaoh.
everywhere. Yeah, we like Pharaoh. Pharaoh's good.
Take that, Cody Crybabies.
So,
Yeah.
your Cody crybabies. This is what happens when you fuck with the final boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool.
A lot of people.
No, I know
I-
you're abstaining from wrestling right now, and I can
think-
appreciate
I'm not
your
even
reasons for that.
staying. I think I'm just kind of done.
One
Like,
thing-
maybe in the next 10 years, I'll
I feel
get
you,
back
Brady.
into it. but,
One of the things that did irritate me
I'm glad to hear that like things are being done well.
that I would agree that it was probably one of the best ending segments on Raw for a long time. But I wouldn't put it in like the overall, like, because people online were like, this is like one of the best ending segments they've ever had on Raw. I'm like,
When you haven't eaten in
Right,
3 years,
right.
and then you eat a steak,
yeah.
it's the greatest steak ever.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Again, like I said,
Right.
it would be hyperbole to say this is one of the best Raws ever. I don't feel it is,
In
but
modern-
it is a very, very,
It's
very
one of the
good
best
Raw.
Raws ever in the past 10 years. I would even go 10 years. I'd be
yeah.
at the top 10 Raw in the past 10 years.
And there you go. So, no feedback this week, gentlemen.
Yeah.
No feedback.
However, passengers, thank you for taking a trip on the bus with us. If you'd like to leave feedback, that is travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com. Again, that is travelers, 1L on the omnibus @gmail.com. Jody, where else can they get us?
You can message us directly via our Spotify page, which, by the way, if you're a private podcaster, it's a pain in the ass to upload now. But anyway.
Yeah, we actually had to swap over because we were established on Anchor.
Yeah.
And Anchor became Spotify
Same.
for podcasters.
Yeah.
And you now have to change it over to an actual Spotify account
Yes.
instead of an Anchor account.
Yes.
We've had a little bit of an issue. Spotify, if you are listening to us, it's not a bad issue.
Right.
The episode's still populated,
Yeah.
where it needed to go. But for some reason, the links are not showing the image of the podcast
Right.
when we're throwing the links
Right.
out there. So just if you could work on that, please, thank you. We greatly appreciate you. Which, by the way, we're available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube Music. I've transferred the Google Podcast over to YouTube Music now,
Nice.
which you should start doing because at the start of April, they all need to be
Right.
going over there, and Amazon.
Say ya.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out what happens when fish and zombies fight. It's time for the main topic. So, Brady,
Yes.
we made these boys fight one another.
Yes, we did.
I want to call it Omnibus versus.
Sure.
All right. Okay. There we go. Good. It's locked in stone forever.
Yes.
There we go. So, I guess this kind of came apart because we're always talking about it, like not just Age of Sigmar in specific, but just games in general. And I think it's because I think we cover the minis end of this, and these guys over here cover like the card game end of this. And later on this year, we're going to be playing Magic the Gathering. Prepare your body for that shit. So that's going to be great.
Yeah, don't remind me.
But because I think most of our audience right now, because they're 10 people and half of them play the game along with us.
Yeah.
What is Age of Sigmar?
So Age of Sigmar is Games Workshop's fantasy line. It replaced going on 10 years ago. It replaced the Warhammer Fantasy, which a lot of people were mad about and are still mad about 10 years later because they're all babies.
Yep. Even though they got their
game back, they're still whiny little piss babies.
Would you call them Cody Crybabies?
That's going on the soundboard. Whiny piss babies.
Whiny piss babies.
Maybe not. We want to use that's a fine wine.
Yeah,
Whiny piss babies.
You don't want to get tired of whiny piss babies. We've already said too much today.
Exactly. We've overdone it.
So yeah, it's their fantasy. It is. It plays. There's a lot of similar things with Warhammer 40K, but there are a lot of differences. I think compared to 40K, like it's like right now, and things may change. We'll talk about that later. It's about as balanced as a game can possibly get.
Their statistics back that up.
Yeah, their statistics. People have tried to get. I read an article where somebody tried to get their how they figured out how they got their statistics and couldn't get it quite right, but like most everything they could get within like 1%.
And for a game with like 20 plus armies to have any kind of balance to me is a miracle.
Yeah, it's also like it's a game that looks really good on the table because it has some of the best models in all of miniatures, even better than like almost everything that's in Warhammer 40K. Fight me for 40K nerds. But yeah, it's their fantasy game.
They have to get out of their mobility scooter first to do that.
Yeah.
Guess what's a tag team fight? Brady and Jay versus 40K.
They're too busy like bitching about 10th edition. So
I think that has kind of subsided now, and it's just it's now into the annual. Oh, this codex is too powerful. Codex just came out like 2 days ago.
I don't think that's true because it seems like most of the codexes aren't super powerful.
The Necron Codex was actually pretty good. Bias, Dark Angels are my favorite faction in 40K. The Dark Angels book was not.
I was about to say most people were disappointed in the Dark Angels. The Tau one hasn't looked like ridiculously powerful, which is not like you don't necessarily want it to be like
the
broken.
Crude actually look really good. And this is weird to say because when I came in, Tau just first like started.
Yeah,
and they were not like they're the shooting army that couldn't really shoot that well. It was kind of sad, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, and then the last edition, when their codex came out, they could shoot too well, and they had to nerf them into the ground. So yeah, but yeah, Age of Sigmar we got into in 2020 because we didn't have anything else to do, and we
shout out also real quick to our friend Jason Holder, who like I think you, me, him. I think we're the real spearhead of like, and that pun was intended because there's a product called Spearhead. Where the real spearhead of just kind of getting back into the game. Initially, it started out with just Warhammer Underworlds, the deck builder / small miniature skirmish game on a board.
Super small miniatures. It plays on a board. And then we also got into Warcry, which is the actual skirmish. You take models from Age of Sigmar, and it's a smaller version of that.
And then for me, they finally released Teclis, which is my favorite hero from the old Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and they re-released a model for him, which I love. I can appreciate people not liking the model because most of his model is the Sphinx that's on his model and not him.
Yeah.
And I
Most
can
of his model
understand
looks
that.
really cool.
Yeah.
Teclis himself doesn't look super great in my
Yeah,
opinion.
he's
but-
literally like it's not even T posing, he's Y posing.
Yeah, and he has
on
this
top
weird
of the wing
scrunched
of
up
the
face.
Sphinx. Yeah.
Well,
'cause
but he
he's
should
mad.
look like an asshole because he's Teclis.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a game. It's an army sized game where you are playing like a lot of models. I mean, you can play certain armies. You can get down to 5-6 models. Certain armies you can get into over 100 models in a 2,000 point game, which is a standard game.
And again, speaks to the variety for the game that
Yeah.
you can have all of these different types of armies playing well. And again, right now, as the stats show, it's very well balanced.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, that could change in 2 or 3 months, but we'll talk about that more
Yeah.
towards the end of this.
Yeah, probably July.
Yeah.
Things are going to really change.
The Mortal Realms Reforged.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we made Ethan and Jody play a game. Neither of them seemed to be in the best mental state when they.
One of them was tired, and the other one was tired.
Yeah. So this was a great testing
We still
ground
played the game.
for the
I still
for the
enjoyed
game.
the game.
Thank
Well,
God.
that's good. We played at 1,000 points, which is not perfectly balanced, and we'll probably talk a little bit about that at 1,000
Oh,
points. But
yeah.
1,000 points is half the points of what a typical competitive game is.
yeah. But you also don't want to drop somebody into a 2,000 point game because that's a lot of moving parts.
You can get overwhelmed by both the choices coming into building the list,
Yeah.
and then once you have the list, the choices you have once it's out in front of you.
Also, we would have been playing for longer than the 4 hours that we played.
Yeah.
Or 3.5.
Yeah, it can usually, if people know what they're doing, a 2,000 point game can go probably 3 hours is more what it would go. But like teaching people and not knowing exactly what's going on, even a 1,000 point game can be kind of long. So we started with a 1,000 point game just to kind of introduce everybody. I know we were talking about earlier. Ethan's had a little bit of experience with Age of Sigmar. This is what would you say, your third game?
This was my third AOS game.
Third game. They've all been at 1,000 points, right? Or have they been?
I think
The
the second game was 1,000 points.
the first game was 1,000 points because it was Blades of Corn it was more demons Blades of Corn, so there was a lot of bloodletters on the field and my bloodthirsters. But even then, like I think it was like one bloodthirster. Yeah, it was 1,000 points. It was
Yeah.
1,000
So
points.
all the games I've played have been 1,000 points.
Okay, and this was Jody's first game. Period.
First
of
with
the-
AOS and Warhammer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you played any miniature games before?
I played a lot of War Machine when it came
Okay,
out back in like 2013, 2014, whenever that came out.
yeah. Okay.
Quite a bit. I played Crix.
Okay.
I know
Crix is great.
I know you and me. We played one game of Kill Team.
We played Kill Team
Yeah, we
once.
played Kill Team.
But that is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't count that very much.
Kill Team is the 40K skirmish game, which is played with way fewer models.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got a little. So both of y'all have a little bit of experience with miniatures game, but it's just not something that you do as much as like other things. So Jody, tell us a little bit about the army that you played.
So I played the Soulblight Gravelords, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what
Yep.
it's called.
Yep.
At the beginning of the setup for what we were doing, Holder let me know that I could hold back different groups,
Yeah.
different units, and have them show up on the field. That there were these graveyard points.
Yeah.
There was like 4 of them, and at the end of the first movement phase, after everything had been placed on the board, I could then put a whole unit at any one of these graveyard points, which is actually like strategically I was like, yes, I'll do that. He didn't give me any information on how I should do it
Yeah.
or anything like that. I just kind of held back and just did it just for effect, and it was pretty sweet.
They come in thriller style.
They did come in thriller style.
Dig out from the ground.
Soulblight Gravedoors, they're just like your basic
Zombies.
They're zombies, they're skeletons, and they're all run by vampires.
I would say they're a classically undead army.
One was one of my leaders was a vampire, and the other guy was a necromancer.
Yeah, you could have wolves in there, you could have bats in there, you can have giant zombie dragons. It is kind of like, if you think of, like, if I say what would be in a death army, these are things that you would list off. Ethan, tell us a little bit about the army that you played.
I piloted Jay's Ideneth Deepkins, specifically the Iron Rack tribe.
Yeah, the Iron Rack Enclave.
Enclave, I believe,
yeah.
yes.
All the sub factions have like different names, so so it's different for every faction.
Stormcast have storm hosts. Cities of Sigmar have cities. Which is kind of cool. Ideneth. So the Ideneth live in the deep sea because they live with withered souls. They're in order, so they're part of the good guys, but they are soul cursed soul vampires that have to come out of the sea and like take souls in order to keep living.
But with them living in the sea, they utilize sea creatures for mounts and other purposes. Like I had 2 units I had were like attacking and defensive guards that rode on eels. Hence why Jay always yells, more eels.
That's about 50% of it. The other 50% of it is in previous editions. The only good army that came out of them was more eels, just however many eels, and Volturnos. But that's going into high tactics.
And you
We're
have
not
a
gonna go
flying
into-
shark.
Yeah, flying shark.
I have a flying shark.
got sharks.
I have the Tidecaster that allows me to have certain units in flood tide.
Yeah. That was your Achillean King.
Achillean King,
And
yes.
specifically for the Iron Rock Enclave, they have the heroic action, which heroic actions are taken by heroes on both sides at the start of each player's turn. And for if you take your Ideneth as the Iron Rock Enclave, they have the ability of, in addition to whatever tide, and we'll get into just very briefly right after this, but whatever tide you're also currently, they can also affect them with an additional tide effect, which allows for, again, greater flexibility with what you can do with that unit.
But the main goal for the specific army that I piloted is I want to charge headfirst into enemy units, take advantage of certain buffs that my units get after charging, and then try and take out as many as possible while also holding on to the command post.
Alpha Strike is a key part of, especially with any kind of like eel, specifically with the eels, I would say is it's a very Alpha Strike army where you want to get in the first shot, and you kind of you want to get your defensive eels, the ones that can like take more hits. You want them to clog up stuff that'll be kind of a nuisance or a big problem, and then you want to focus your Alpha Strike onto the things that you know you can hit and kill out enemy heroes, things like that.
Well, I tried that strat.
You charged your attack eels
Yeah.
into exploding vomit zombies.
I was talking about the defensive eels, but like I said, we'll get to that.
Yeah. There you go.
So
Go ahead.
Oh,
I was just gonna, like, at the beginning when I got my secret unit I put out at the end of movement. I pretty much like surrounded one of Ethan's main guys.
Yeah, so I had no idea what any of his dudes did.
I didn't have any idea what
they
his
did.
dudes did.
Yeah. And so his graveyards that he's able to like place on the battlefield, they can also be placed in my enemy starting line
Behind a certain area.
No.
So I was able to send like a whole entire unit to fuck up his main guy early on in the game.
And did you place those after we placed all of our models?
Yes.
Okay, so he could have essentially placed the graveyards wherever, like some that was problematic for him that he can deal with immediately.
I did like the most generic strategy you could do with something like that.
Yeah.
And I placed each graveyard like on each like corner, basically. for the most part, except for one, and it was in the center of his area.
Yeah.
Directly beside my Tidecaster.
That was before he put his dudes out, though. The graveyards came out before the dudes came out.
Yeah, that's usually how it works with any kind of terrain or graveyards aren't technically terrain, but they're placed kind of like terrain. So yeah, how do you feel you guys did with each of the armies? Do you feel like they fit the kind of play style that you like, or did you feel like?
Yes and no. I like the idea of charge head first and trying to take out as many dudes as possible. However, the dudes I went up against are a little bit of some nuisances.
Yeah.
Just because of their ability.
The so like one of the maybe two of the units. I know one of the units that was like the skeletal unit with the necromancer had an ability to where if they didn't all die after combat, you roll an amount of dice for like however many died or whatever. As long as you have at least one, and then like X amount come back.
Yeah, I think that's a skeleton ability.
It's a skeleton ability, but I think that necromancer supercharges that ability.
Makes it better.
And that gets into the notion of power pairs, which I think is something that is very prevalent in Age of Sigmar, in that you have units that by themselves are okay, or maybe not necessarily okay, but then there's a hero unit that when paired with them starts to really kind of make them shine.
Yeah.
The Achillean, I picked the Achillean King as the general for Ethan's army for two reasons. First reason, by being the general, it makes the Eels battle line, which if you're playing in this game, if you're playing comp, you need to have a certain number of battle line units. And having the Eels as battle line means that you can actually include more. You can include them and also satisfy a requirement while then filling out your edges with stuff that you would like to also add in.
Right.
The second reason why I put that in there is because the Achillean Kings and the named Achillean King Volturnos have an ability where you can, with just the Achillean King, you can pick D3 units, I think, within 18 inches of you. And no matter what the tide is in that turn, they're also affected by the high tide as well, which for high tide, we'll go through the tides now. The Ideneth have this system called the Tides of Battle. In the first round, regardless of what's going on, every single unit in the Ideneth army has cover, which we found out, and this is one of the reasons why playing more you find these things out. Cover saves work also in close combat as well, except for people charging you. So if you get charged in and you have cover, you have an addition to your save, so you're able to take the brunt of that charge a little better, which I think is pretty cool. Second turn, you have the Flood Tide, where everybody gets run and either shoot or charge. And what does that mean? So in your game, you have your movement value, and then you can tack on an additional six-sided die of movement if you want them to run. But if they run, they cannot shoot and they cannot charge, typically. On the Flood Tide, they can run and shoot or charge, and you can't run and shoot and charge.
Right.
But what that means is
charging is the only way that you get into battle in Age of Sigmar.
into close combat.
You literally in the movement phase can't move within 3 inches of any enemy fighters.
Yes. So once you're able to do that, it now extends the range of how far back you can have been to actually being able to get inside, get in their face and do something about that. High Tide is the most prevalent one. That it's turn 3 typically. High Tide is everything in the Ideneth army strikes first. Across the board, as long as it's an Ideneth Deepkin model, it strikes first. That is so potent because once everything strikes, then your enemy gets to attack back.
Right.
If you've hit a unit with 3 other units of models, first of all, it's very likely that unit is just not on the board anymore.
Right.
And if it is, and particularly if it's a monster that gets weakened as it takes damage, that can be a significant thing on the strike back. Insane.
Which usually, really quick in the combat phase, usually it goes whoever's turn it is, they go first, pick a unit, then the opponent picks a unit, then you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Strike first means that everything that has strike first goes, and then you start with with, okay, I go, you go, I go, you go. So oftentimes your stuff gets, if everything has strike first, then all of your stuff pretty much gets to go.
Yeah.
And then they get to go.
Right.
So
And that is for round 3, both players' turns. You strike first on both of those rounds. So if you had a very good opening round of that, in your next round, you're getting paid off even more now. You're not getting like necessarily your charge bonuses if you had any of those, but yeah, just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I think like by the game we were playing, by the time it got to round 3, and I'm going to backtrack on how it got to that point, I had already dismantled a huge amount of Ethan's units, mainly because of like the one group of skeletons that would keep coming back like multiple times.
It would, my Killian King would stay in combat with that unit, and he would, I think he knocked out all but 3, and that little bit allowed you to bring back the majority of all your lost.
I think I brought
units.
12 guys back
that's
out
where
of 20.
that's where the necromancer came back.
The way Soulblight Grave Lords plays is that most of their units aren't like their units aren't like super high quality. They're not going to do a whole lot of damage. There is one that does do that, but most of their units are just kind of chaff, which means that they're just there to stand there and take a hit and be a tar pit or just be a roadblock. But they can constantly be bringing them back.
Right.
If a unit is completely wiped off the table, the next turn there is a possibility that it can just come back at half strength.
And it comes in at one of those graveyards.
Yeah, it comes in from a graveyard. Basically, the vampires raise up some more dead because there's always dead. Or they have the ability, and most death armies do this, where they have heroes or abilities on those units that can just bring back models. I play Ossiarch Bone Reapers. They are a death army. They have a lot of their big heroes have the ability to just go, okay, here I'm going to bring back 3 models to this unit. And it can be very frustrating for a person playing against that. But that's just how they play.
Right. And I think like going back to the early game, the unit that left out were the strong swingy guys. And that's how I was able to
the Grave Guard, they hit like a truck. Like
I'd even say the Death Rattle skeletons hit what, like your actual tar pit in that army. And I would say it's an acidic tar pit is those zombies, because as you're killing those zombies, they then kill you back by just vomiting all over.
Yeah, almost all of them died, and then boom happened.
Yeah.
So there was a point where I charged at those specific zombies with my attacking eels, and the eels have this ability where I can, after they've charged, I can announce that they're releasing a psionic. It's not psionic blast. It's a
biovoltaic blast.
Biovoltaic blast, which I roll a number of dice equal to the number of units. No,
models in the unit.
Models equal to the number of models in the unit, and if that unit has more models than the attacking unit, then I get additional bonuses to whatever I roll.
The notion is that they developed all of this static electricity as they're charging in because of the speed and how the eels work, that they release it all in this just one pulse. And if you think about like that, like imagine how it looks in there, I think it's a cool effect. And it does very well. You use that against hard targets that have good armor saves, because mortal wound, because this damage does mortal wounds. Normally, you have an armor save after taking an attack that successfully wounded you, and if that armor save fails, if you have a ward save after, it's the only time you can get to. It's the only time you get to save on that. With mortal wounds, if you have a ward save, that's the only thing you get to take against it.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have a ward save, you just take that.
Take that damage, which damage is. I will say at least this version of Age of Sigmar damage. Like if you're able to do damage matters. I think the hammers are more important than your anvils. The notion is an anvil is there to set up and take the hit from the enemy, and then the hammer comes in and crushes it with the damage on there. I think your hammer, the actions of your hammers are way more important than your anvils, but you still need a good stout 1 or 2 anvil units to take those hits.
When he bum rushed that group of exploding zombies, the aftermath was like he killed all but like 2 of them or something.
I
Did you kill all?
I took out that entire.
Yeah,
the entire unit was wiped.
That entire unit was wiped then, and then it like because he had 3 big models in that unit, right?
3 models, period. Yeah.
You had like the 3 eel. Was it the
Yeah,
eels?
It was just 3 eels.
It was just 3
3
eels.
eels, and the zombies when they exploded killed 1 and heavily damaged the second one to where it was almost dead.
Yep.
Like they, besides the champion model still in that unit, it was essentially useless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and the reason I wanted to say that you really do need some like anvils in your army, so to speak, is that the game is played by controlling points. We played the mission
Geomantic Pulse.
which has objectives that you can control within 6 inches by having the most models within 6 inches of that. The way Geomantic, usually it's like hold 1, hold 2, hold more, and then there might be a special rule or something. They might be set up differently. But with Geomantic Pulse, it's the rule is if you hold 1, you get a point. And then on the beginning of turn 2, you choose, there's 4 objectives across the center. And then whoever goes second on turn 2, on round 2, you choose which outside is going to be the pulse, and then you get extra points for controlling the pulse, and you get extra points for controlling what's next to the pulse. And then every round after that, the pulse moves down. So it's kind of like a shifting objectives type thing that you have to hold. This is probably I think this is the most popular of the new General's Handbook, of the newer General's Handbook, because it's not like super new, because it's about a year old.
One of the reasons why I love this map is, so there is in Age of Sigmar, and I think I can't say outside of, but definitely within Games Workshop games, this is the only game I know of that allows for a double turn. And what do I mean by that? So we have a priority roll at the start of the game, and whoever wins that priority roll decides who goes first, and which means the other person goes second. And you have a few benefits for going second, but for the most part, you kind of want to be that first. You want to be that first if you can do a lot of damage in that first turn. Otherwise, you may want to go second. And the reason why you want to go second, one, is because you get a few extra command points, so you have a little bit more command flexibility in what you're doing out in the game. But then it also gives you the first opportunity to get a double turn, because if you roll the dice again and you win the priority again, you can now take the first turn for that round, which means you had the last turn in the previous round
to set
and
up
the first turn in this current round,
right.
Which means before they've gone once and you have now gone twice. And now they're on their second turn, they're reactive to your 2 turns.
Right.
And I like that. It can lead to snowballing. I will say, let me get the negative. It can lead to snowballing, because if you're already winning and then you get the double turn, it just finishes it. But that second, but also if you are down and you get a double turn, like for a lot of times, like you can watch a lot of 40K games. And again, I'm going with Games Workshop because that's what I'm typically at. But I would also say for War Machine Mark III, the 3rd edition for War Machine, whoever gets that early lead, as if they know what they're doing, they can just slowly, methodically just fucking keep going and keep going and win. They have the option, at least in War Machine Mark III, and I think in the early War Machines, where if you can just kill their general, you can kind of win the game.
Yeah, with that one, but also like the way War Machine is set up, like you can't get to the other army turn 1.
That is true. Yeah.
In fact, during Mark III, and they're already into Mark IV, so I don't know exactly how. I don't know every single.
And it's
thing
one of the
about
reasons
that.
why I'm going to clip it there, because I can't speak on Mark IV.
Yeah. They even, like, when there was a possibility of being able to get in to reach a person, reach the other person on the top of turn 1, they changed it. So they changed it to where you couldn't do that. But Age of Sigmar is a game where you can interact with. There are armies that can very easily get to. the opponent's army turn one before they've ever done anything. So it is a little bit different.
Particularly Iron Jaws orcs, and in the same thing, the Big Wa orcs can have a really good options of getting that in, which is thematic for them because orcs want to get stuck in almost immediately and just start just whooping ass. But yeah,
if I wanted to, I think if I like pushed with a charge roll, or even like a run, I think I could have gotten at least one of my eel armies close to Jody.
Yeah. Typically, what you'd want to do there, and at 2,000 points, you'd have more eels, and you'd have more offensive than you would have defensive eels. But you would take your defensive eels, which are called Ishlane Guard. You'd get the Ishlane Guard stuck in there with things that are going to annoy stuff, and they're basically there to take hits and possibly even die. But it means that those things that were going to annoy you don't. And then you take your attack eels and you go after generals, you go after heroes, you go after harder targets that probably have better armor or some sort of ward save, but where you're throwing so much damage dice at them that they eventually go down. I would not throw the eels into battle against chaff, because chaff is specifically there to basically absorb those hits and keep them locked up. I think you loved the idea of charging those zombies and like, oh, I'm going to eat some zombies. This would be great. That should have been the Ishlane taking those hits and then those guys swimming around and then taking out the Necromancer, taking out the Vampire Lord, things like that, so that his command structure is down. What he did to you by being able to sneak those Graveguard into your Tidecaster, that's what you should have been doing by going around, because maybe Tzeentch, certain mounted forms of orcs, nothing is faster than Iron Rock on eels. 14-inch movement and flying, which means anything that is in your way as far as obstacles, it's not in your way. You're going up there. No matter what. You just go up. You just go up and over it. Now you can't land on it, but you go up and over it and you're around it, and they've got to like try to move around things, like positioning of. Which is one of the reasons why the Gloomtide Shipwreck, which is your terrain piece, I think is so big and important, because you can use that to block off certain areas depending on the map, and that can make all the difference in the world as far as them being able to touch you. If you can touch them and they can't touch you, if you're John Cena, if you're untouchable but you're forcing them to feel you, you've won. Doesn't matter if it's Iron Rock, rather Ideneth, Soulblight, whatever. If you can do what you want to do and they can't do anything about it, you've won the game.
By the time I had started like eating at his army, though, he had already gotten 5 not command points, but 5 points versus my 1. Yeah, and so I had to like think about how to strategize and use the tactics that I've come to know through playing just Japanese tactical RPGs for thousands of hours, which helps. By the way, anybody that's never played any of these mini games, if you play a lot of Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogres, it will help you a little bit.
And you don't have to worry about a measuring tape, because it's all the units are measured out for you.
Just hit your guys, and but I was like, as soon as I started figuring out what I needed to do, and kind of like I had to keep the balance of like trying to figure out how to not completely get wiped out, but also holding him off without wiping out like a whole unit again, because I needed to get back into the points game, because you can't just like, Jay knows this already. I'm a tactics guy. I'm not a strategy guy normally. Like I know like I can like off the cuff I can figure out but like planning strategy out, not always my strong suit. So I had to strategize how to figure out to not completely wipe Ethan's army off the map at like near the end of the game, in order to catch up on the points that I needed.
Yeah, and the thing about Age of Sigmar is that it's a game that a lot of times people will come into it and it's like, okay, I just want to move forward and I want to hit things really hard, and that's cool and that can be very helpful. But in the end, it's a game about controlling points, and it's very easy for you to possibly have your entire army wiped out and still win, because your opponent can't catch up on points if you've gotten far enough ahead on points.
There's all, and we didn't do this in this game because we just want to kind of just some of the basics. We didn't do battle tactics or grand strategy. That is a second avenue to get points, and in a 5-round game, that's 13 points.
Yeah,
which is a big chunk.
Significant.
Yeah,
It's a big
battle
chunk.
tactic is basically at the beginning of your turn. You pick a tactic that says, hey, if you do this by the end of it, you usually get 2 points. I think every single one of them says you get 2 points. So
And then you have, and I apologize.
Yeah.
I do want to, because grand strategy is an overall throughout the game. This is what at the end of the game you
by
want
the
to
end
have
of the game you
accomplished.
have this, so you get 3 extra points. And sometimes that can be very easy to do. Sometimes that can be very hard to do. But a battle tactic gives you like an extra thing. Okay, I'm not just going to try to control these points. I'm trying to do this specific thing, which might be kill a specific model, or it might be kill a specific unit, or it might be this close to certain parts of the board, or this terrain piece that you picked, or something like that.
And some of those can be against actually capturing objectives, because one of the ones from the battle pack that's currently running is you have to have units on 3 board edges, not counting your original board edge,
within like
and
6 inches, I think.
and those are not typically near the objective points.
Right.
So you have to keep things off of the objectives to score that.
Yeah.
And then you have to try to get back on those objectives or have other things already on those objectives.
Yeah. Which is where oftentimes with that, models, armies who can do some kind of teleportation or bringing models in later from a different thing, from a different area, can often, it's easier for them to score. Or if they have like super fast units, oftentimes you'll bring a unit that is just like a fast unit just so you could do this one thing. Or like with Bone Reapers, most of their tactics that are in their book are dealing with a specific unit type. So they'll bring like Cavalos Death Riders just because there is a tactic for Cavalos Death Riders. That's actually a pretty easy tactic to do. So okay, I should have that one in the bag. I should have 2 points when I want it. And that's a very important part of the game, is figuring out like, okay, what battle tactic should I use? Can I actually do this? How much of a risk is it? And things like that. But yeah, there's a lot to it's not just about like moving forward and killing your enemy's army, but it's also about like thinking about, okay, controlling the points. Maybe I need to use this kind of crappy unit to screen off and to keep them from being able to get past me, things like that. So there's a lot of like things that you have to think about besides just like move forward, hit things, with the game. And it just comes with these things just come with like playing the game more. And of course, like Jay and I don't claim to be like experts of the game. We don't play as much as a lot of people, but the more you play the game, the more you see these things and are able to like figure out how to do them well. So
Yeah, definitely repetition. And like, for instance, I think, Ethan, if you had known more about Soulblight Gravelords, I think you would have had a better idea of going what to target.
I would have had a little bit different
game plan,
yeah, because I could have swore he placed the graveyards after we had placed all of our units.
Maybe they did. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I do know, but I think what I loved about your placement is you had 2 in the back where you started. So just in case, if you need to come from if you need to go back and like do a reset, you can do that from there. You placed 1 next to the not to the Tidecaster. That's the final point on that one. You placed 1 next to an objective, so if they get wiped out over here, well, we're going to come back on and we're going to take this objective over here and make you deal with it. And then finally, you had 1 right in the middle of his spawn, and where he moved everything up and left his Tidecaster alone. Even not knowing that, you want to kind of keep your army not necessarily all together, because then you're kind of like ceding the majority of the map for just to have more control over one part of the map. But I think if she had been closer, him charging those up, maybe the Namartis stay with him, and maybe that charge into her brings the Namarti thralls in, and then we have some stuff there that kind of work there. Her being left out alone, especially in the rules now, because it used to be there's a rule called Look Out, Sir, which makes it harder to hit a hero if they're next to a unit of 3 or more people. Now it's you can't even target that unit if they're next to something that's the 3 or more. Even though he didn't have any shooting, the notion of keeping your heroes nearby the army, which you honestly should, because if they're going to give out commands, they should be closer to one another. Her kind of hanging out by herself is begging for her to get killed in some way, shape, or form. Like, because he has 2 magic users, he can cast spells on her from a distance. Again, the graveyard stuff. I think she started further away from the graveyard, and I think you walked her closer to the graveyard, which just made it a little bit easier for him to like get on her.
I remember you were saying that the shipwreck, it gave a
The Gloomtide shipwreck gives a ward save. Yes,
it gave a
she
ward
already
save.
has one though. Yeah, she has one built into her character. All of the Ishran, there's 3 types of Ideneth. You have the Namarti, which are the soulless ones, which they're the ones that need to be given more souls in order to keep them around. You have the Ishlain, you have the Achilleans, which are the warrior caste, and they're usually the kings and the people go out and fight. And then you have the Ishran, which are the spiritual advisors. Those are your wizards, your priests. And all of those typically have a 5+ ward save or some type of ward save for them. Her kind of keeps moving up. With the ships, I would have pushed them as far to the edge of your starting area as I possibly could so that you could have that range of it still there. If the army were to have been built differently, maybe pull out the thralls and instead have Namarti Reavers and have them squat up inside a full shipwreck, and that way they're always in cover and they're shooting out from cover, and they always have their ward save inside there because they're inside of it, so they're within that zone of comfort.
There's
No. I
was going to say, talking about the hypothetical, if there was 2,000 points in his army, if there'd have been 2,000 points in my army, that would have also changed all the strategies and the tactics of everything as well.
Yeah, and that gets to the point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that gets to the point that like we oftentimes like to play, like especially if you're introducing somebody to the game, or like when we're learning the rules to the game, or like the new edition or whatever. We'll play like or like we started playing 1,000 points because we were getting back into it and playing it more. So we started with like 1,000 points, but the game is not really balanced perfectly for 1,000 points. Right. It's really balanced for 2,000 points. Which is why, like, if I'm playing somebody who knows how to play the game, I don't like playing at 1,000 points even to kind of learn, to kind of get back or get back into things.
Right.
But when you're introducing somebody to the game, like you want to play at 1,000 points. But the problem is like, Jody had like upwards of like 60 models,
right,
in his 1,000 points, whereas Ethan had much
18.
less than 18. He had 18 models. He had less than 20. So
it's a question between, and that list could have been built horde, but it would have been like 4 units of Namarti thralls, and then it would have been a different, because instead of the Achillean king, I probably would have put in an Ishran soul render and the Achillean thrall master, which gives more options to the thralls and buffs them up. Again, I'm talking about power pairs. You place these things together because they work off of one another. At 2,000 points, like the main one to me, the main thing is horde armies at 1,000 points are at a significant advantage.
Yeah,
and at 2,000 points, that balance starts to go away. And then finally, like at the very beginning, they were doing 3,000 points at the start of 3rd edition. That's where the elite armies get better, because now I have so many elite units. Oh, you have 2 blocks of 60 dudes. Well, this 2 blocks of 30 dudes that I have will wipe them out before they ever get in touch with it. I don't think that's necessarily what happened here.
Yeah.
I think Jody played a very good tactical game in holding off and finding a weak point and exploiting that weak point and moving on from there. Because what allowed him to do, first of all, it couldn't completely cut out all of Ethan's magic. Ethan had 1 magic user versus 2 for his side, and at the end of the first round, there was no magic for his side. So there's no dispelling spells. There's no casting your own spells. I think that was smart. that is a plus. That is a plus for Jody. I'm not going to use the 1,000 points because they were both at 1,000 points. I think for Ethan made mistakes tactically. Again, I think this was a matter of tactics in the moment as opposed to maybe a grand strategy overall.
Yeah.
Target choice and what to do with your units, I think was there. Ideneth, because they're elves and elves tend to be fragile. You have to kind of use them specifically for what they're needed for. Namarti whole points. Your Vanguard is going to be your eels because they move so fast. One gets stuck in, and the other ones are assassins that take everything else out. Your magic is about manipulating the stuff going on the board. Hoarfrost, I think if you could have gotten a Hoarfrost off and had your Killian King hitting on ones, oh god, that thing would have been brutal. I think it was a matter of get your charges in, attack, retreat, hold points, and make him. And when he comes to you, you get to now retreat. For the last tide that we didn't mention is the ebb tide on the 4th round. You get to retreat and either shoot and charge, which that's huge because then you get to pull out from this entire big goop of things that they're into, and then just attack maybe just one of the 2 units in there, and you get to ignore the other one. There's so much stuff that you can do with Ideneth. I think overall, Jody's tactical, Jody's tactical ability of noticing what's in front of him now and being able to affect on that, I think that's what carried the day for that, 100%.
All right, so that's Jay's feelings about how it went. How do you guys feel like the match went? I know, Ethan, you seemed a little frustrated at the end, but I mean, I've had that happen too. I understand, if you get your army wiped out, it's kind of demoralizing.
It's not really the frustrating part with it. It's more so, hey, these things are just gonna keep coming back and keep withering you down one by one. Where and on top of these this unit you have to worry about, you have to deal with the 40 attacks from the this other fuck off unit that's currently wiping out your back defenses. And so it's more so the recursion that I couldn't do anything about, and really just the graveyard. The graveyard that I the player and me controlling my armies could not interact with. And so he's able to sneak units behind my defenses.
And I think when it comes to dealing with Soul Blight with the graveyards, a thing that is something that and it's harder for somebody who hasn't played a lot to maybe see, is that you sometimes with their graveyards you have to kind of just block them out to where, okay, there's nowhere that they in this graveyard right here I've kept some units, I've positioned units in a way, and sometimes it's harder to do that because the graveyard might be away from an objective that you really want to get to. You have to pick and choose.
You're using resources to mitigate the graveyard recursion.
But it's hey, if I put this unit here, there's no way that he can set up legally. Positioning with stuff like that, even in 40K, that's a very big thing that you have to, and it's something that is harder to kind of grok, I guess, is that sometimes you have to position things such that you keep your enemy from using this thing because there's no legal place for them to put it. So they have to pick, okay, well, I have to bring the thing back over here then.
There's also an aspect I wanted to touch on briefly is that Ethan has played this just a couple times, so almost not. So unfamiliar.
It hasn't been close together. It's been I don't even know when the first time was.
There were no prep games going on.
So unfamiliarity with the game and the rules and all of that, which is why I did have to ask Holder a lot of questions when we were playing, and a lot of times he'd be just trying to give me different strategy advice or whatever. I'm yeah, I was already going to do that, but thank you. But after thinking about it and after remembering how the game went down and looking at both sides really truthfully, I was in a position where my unfamiliarity with not just the game, But with my army and Ethan's army, I have complete unfamiliarity with it.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan also had the same unfamiliarity with my army.
Mm-hmm.
So when he charged into my dudes, he didn't know they were going to explode and kill his models. And so for me, I was just like, the only luck part is it was lucky for me that my unfamiliarity didn't affect me in the same way it affected Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
Like my knowledge of his army or my lack of knowledge of his army didn't affect any of my tactics because I had no idea, just like he had no idea.
Yeah.
But what I did didn't affect me the same way it did to what he did, what his choices that he made.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens in war games because there's so much that you have to keep track of.
A lot of nuances.
You have to keep track of just the game rules in general. You have to keep track of your army rules. And then like they have all your army rules and your general has a special ability. You have an artifact that you put on somebody that gives a hero a special ability.
Right.
So you have to keep track of all this, and then there's also all this stuff that they have as well.
Right.
And some of the stuff can end up. Sometimes you get a thing where even if you don't mean to, it becomes a gotcha because it's something that you might have forgotten to tell.
Right.
It just happens in every.
There's so many things.
It just happens in like every single war game, like larger scale war game that I've played. Is that oftentimes something will happen that ends up being a gotcha, where the person's like, where it might feel bad, where the person's like, oh man, I wouldn't have done that if I would have known that.
Yeah.
Right.
I've tried to get into the habit of like, okay, my people do this, this, and this, but I also realize that oftentimes that's a huge dump of information. And but also you try and learn a little bit about the other person's army. So if I'm facing them, they can do these things, and that's hard to also like keep in your head as well. So
yeah, because a lot of times when Ethan was like, "I'm doing this," I'm like, "I don't know what that is."
Mm-hmm.
And so it would have to be explained to me what that was and how things were going to go down and how I should probably react to it because unfamiliarity,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody is going to be an absolute nerd about stuff like I am, where you're just reading about other people's armies and shit like that. But even then, like I can't tell you, like if somebody says I have this artifact on this guy, you're going to have to tell me what that shit does because I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I know generally what your army does, and I know like, okay, this is an army this is a unit that hits hard. This is a fast kind of paper save army that can be really wiped out, but they're going to run and take an objective.
I think I watched like a 20-minute breakdown of the game as a whole, which glossed over everything. And I started watching another video, and when the guy started talking about this army has 26 war scrolls.
Yeah.
This army has 75. I'm like, I can't absorb all that.
I'd like to touch on that topic. So the 75 War Scroll army that he's mentioning is the Stormcast Eternals, which are in additions, they are always one of the two starter armies that they want you to get into at the start of the edition. I think it is counterintuitive to bringing in new people to the game to introduce them to one of the armies that has over 40 choices. Forget the 75. Cut 20 of those out and you're still 10 choices more than you ought to have in there. Because, again, a lot of this, some of it is power pairs, but some of it is like, okay, this model looks exactly like this model, except this is a spear and this is an axe. And what's the difference? And there are 4 separate war scrolls when it could be just one war scroll and you put all of the weapon choices in one thing and just make it so much simpler for them. But no, it's 4 separate war scrolls because it's 4 separate titles of things. That gets confusing. It is the one area where I think they've really failed. And I mean that with a pure failure in that if you're going to introduce people to this game, give them an army that is much simpler to put together. This way back in the day when I got involved in 40K, Space Marines I think were about 12 to 14 separate entries, and it was broken up in this is your battle, like these are your troops choices, and and this is what you had to do to fill out what was called a force organization chart, and everything was broken up to and the troops choices were really simple. You had Space Marines and you had Space Marine Scouts. That was the only two things that had to make up your bedrock or your army. Depending on what your general is in Age of Sigmar for Stormcast Eternals, these 4 items can be your battle line. These will always be your battle line. But then if you take this general with this specific thing, these come in as battle line. It's hard enough to figure out what works with anything, and then also pair it with what can I even put in my fucking army.
Right.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I don't necessarily agree because I think that it's not super hard to look at what you can. Okay, there are these things. I have these models. You can see it might take a little bit of extra thing where you have to go. Okay, what goes good with this? Let me look up what can I just add with this. I understand that it can be a little bit overwhelming, but like a lot of armies that have a lot of models and a lot of war scrolls also have like conditional battle line and stuff like that. I don't think it's quite as bad as what you say. But it is like not super great when you look at the book and there's so many options.
I want to stress this. This is for people starting the game that may have, one, never played a miniatures game before, or two, never have played Age of Sigmar before.
Yeah.
If you hand me 75 sheets, I'm going to look at this and go, just before I even dig into anything, I'm going to look at them like, I'm going to need a filing cabinet. What I think there's too much in Stormcast to make it a viable starting faction for somebody.
Yeah. I think you're over exaggerating just the giving them 75 sheets because there's a lot of war scrolls, but you don't get a lot of war scrolls at the time. If you buy whatever starter box, it's going to have so many it's going to have so many units in it, and you can just go, well, I'll just get more of that unit, or let me again look up what goes well with these things. I don't think it's quite as overwhelming as what you say, again, because for the last, it's been the starter the thing every time, and it's just a condition of the fact that it's their starter thing. They have decided this is basically fantasy space marines, so we're going to put them in every single one. And I don't like this necessarily, but they are a business, and they're not just going to put the same old models every single time. So they're going to put new models. But then old models are going, like there's talk with this next edition that some old models are going to be retired. They do that all the time with 40K because there's like super old models. But they're retiring stuff all the time. I think a lot of people, like every time a new codex comes out, like you find out, oh, these models aren't legal anymore that I have. So
I'm still waiting on them to pull the switch on the Firstborn Space Marines being totally
I think
phased
that
out.
they're working on that. I would say it's probably a couple more editions and those are going away because they are slowly like saying like paring things down to where like, okay, these older models can't go into this. And I think we'll probably see the same thing with this new, or they get updated. There's talk that like some of the new things that are going to be coming out is going to be basically a newer, better model for these old models that came out in the first that don't look quite as good as the newer stuff. But that's going to happen with when you have a one faction that is the poster boy for each new thing. Again, I get what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but I don't think we're ever going to see eye to eye on this particular part. But so I guess we can do before we talk about the rat side, the giant rat elephant in the room.
Yeah, the great horned rat, you might say. I did have one thing I wanted to ask the gentleman. Ethan, let's start with you with this. Final thoughts on the game.
Final thoughts on the game. I enjoy it. The past few times I've actually sat down and played 1,000 Point Armies, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing it. The only thing I think I probably could have done is, and I know this is probably a hobby. I enjoy the hobby. However, it's hard for me to like get my things and actually go headlong into it. I know that we've discussed me getting flesh eater cords and getting those, continuing with those, but there's so many factions and so many things you have to keep track with in order to figure out how to best strategize whenever you're playing against it. and so I enjoy it. There's too much. There's too much. There's too much information for what little space I have in my head. That's already filled with too much information about other things.
You heard it here, guys. Ethan has a small brain.
Small and smooth brain.
All right, Jody, final thoughts on the game.
I understand where Ethan's coming from. I mean, you do have to hold maybe 25% of all the Magic cards that are in existence, which is somewhere around like, let's see, out of 35,000 cards. Anyway.
Oh my God, he's dying.
I am. My science has been kicking my ass all day.
Oh no, it's not good.
Overall, I enjoyed my experience. I've always enjoyed the tactical strategy aspect in video games. So playing a tactical mini game wasn't something I was completely opposed to. As far as overall, I won't be sure how I feel until I play different armies against different armies. And even though there are a lot of options, I'm not going to say whether or not I'm going to jump into the hobby because of multiple reasons. And money's not the main.
This man has pleurisy, and yet he's still recording.
Honor this man.
Money isn't the highest priority in that. A lot of it has to do with, I'll just, go into, my main gaming hobby is Magic the Gathering. And people will ask me almost daily, hey, did you see the new card that got spoiled? Fucking no, I didn't. I don't have that space in my brain anymore. I cut it out.
It's like something happened right before we recorded or something.
I cut that part out of my brain because there's too much and it's all the time. So I won't know for certain until I play it more. And like the guy said, like there's a new change coming with a new edition.
Yeah. Brady,
or something.
Brady, hit us with it.
Yeah, good thing you brought that up because in a few months, none of the stuff that you just learned and tried to fit in your brain will matter because all of the rules are changing. It's going to be a ground up thing, a ground up reboot of all the rules.
Reboot all the rules.
Because 4th edition of Sigmar is coming in probably July.
Huh?
Yeah. So lore wise, here's what happened. The Skaven, who are rat people, live underground. They decided they didn't want to live underground anymore, and they have called the Vermin Doom, or some people are calling it the Rat Apocalypse.
The Rat Apocalypse.
Yeah, and they are trying to take over several of the mortal realms, which are basically different lands.
The main focus, reportedly, for this is going to be the Great Parch in Akshi, which is the realm of fire.
The realm of fire. There's also going to be a little bit in the Gairan, the realm of life. And because of this, the shit's really going down. So Sigmar, who is the god who runs the Stormcast Eternal, has opened up the what's it called, the what chamber? Damn.
So
the Ruination Chamber,
yes.
which are Stormcast are basically immortal warriors who every time they die, their souls get sent back to Sigmar to get reforged, but every time they get reforged, they lose just a little bit of themselves. And those that are in the Ruination Chamber are Stormcast that have been reforged so many times that they really have lost so much of their self that they cannot survive, that they cannot live in like regular society. So they have to be kind of locked away. So that's what's happening lore wise. What's happening rules wise is that like when the new thing comes out, all the battle tomes that we all own and all the war scrolls don't matter. They're going away. You are going to be able to get...
It was a mass hallucination the entire time.
You're going to be able to get all of the new rules, the new core rules, and the new war scrolls and rules for your army are going to be able to be downloaded for free. This is basically the same thing that happened for 10th edition. 10th
edition Warhammer
10th
40K.
edition Warhammer 40K. A lot of things are going to be changing. They've been slowly trickling out, like what things are going to change. So, yeah. Now, the good news that I think for getting new people in, there's going to be a new game type called Spearhead, which with 10th edition they had Combat Patrol, where you could take what comes in a Combat Patrol, which is kind of a starter box,
Battle box kind of
yeah,
thing.
it's kind of a battle box, and you can take that and it has rules, and you can just play those with almost all of the rules for 40K, and that's a good way to learn it. They're going to be doing something similar with Age of Sigmar. I hope it turns out better than Combat Patrol, because Combat Patrol was nice, but it wasn't something that you wanted to play all the time. They said they've made Spearhead something more that you want to play all the time, and it feels different. So I'm hoping that will be a good thing, a good way to get people into and at least have something for that is interesting for people to play if they're just getting into it. Or maybe you can just, hey, get this. Either they call them Vanguard boxes in Age of Sigmar, or Spearhead boxes is what they're changing them to. I think they're gonna get a little bit of change happening. Hey, get this box, put it together, and then you can just play that. And all you have to do is learn the rules for that, and then maybe remember some pared down rules for the other person, but you're still learning and playing the game. And maybe that's just all that you play, because it's supposed to be a little bit different. Of course, this is promotional stuff. They say that like this is something that you want to play, that you'll want to play like more than just once to get into the game. So hopefully that reigns true. I am cautiously optimistic. I'm trying to have faith in the people who make Age of Sigmar, and hope that they don't make some of the same mistakes that 40K 10th edition made, or at least made to the people who played the game a lot. I dipped my toe into 40K 10th edition, but I didn't play it a lot, and I'm not like someone who's played 40K for a very long time, or I'm really into that game. I like Age of Sigmar, so I'm hoping that they do a good job with this. Again, I'm cautiously optimistic. Some of the things that's kind of made me a little wary is they're using kind of the same promotional language that when you say simplified, not simple, which is exactly what they said for 40K, that kind of makes me worry a little bit. But I don't know. I'm hoping that this turns out to be a really good edition that I enjoy. I'm just going to keep up with the little trickle of things. All that to say is, yeah, all the stuff that we taught y'all in a few months, not even going to matter. You're going to have to learn a whole new game, basically. So good luck with that.
Never matter.
I'm concerned about something they mentioned about modular rules.
Modular rules is not, I can't even grasp how that works, so I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see that in print first, see what they mean by that.
Needless to say, I'm going to be like looking at Warhammer Community for articles pretty much every day to see like what the hell is going on with this. They're changing a whole lot of things. According to them, this is the most that rules have ever changed since the game came along, since they basically redid a lot of stuff after that first edition. So hopefully they do a good job with it. I'm trying to have, like I said, right now, I think it's like one of the most balanced war games out there, which is saying a lot. So I'm hoping that they continue, and they've done pretty good with this third edition. I've been very happy with the things. It was a little annoying because some of the changes kind of screwed over some of the armies that I played. But when my battle tomes actually came out, it got a whole lot better. So I'm hoping that goes with that. So I'm hoping that when fourth edition comes out, we'll probably do a whole episode when we like get to play it and talk about it, talk about the changes and everything like that. But I'm hoping that when it comes out, like we can revisit like maybe Spearhead and have y'all do another kind of
sounds good to me.
Back and
or
forth
have all
with
four
it.
of us play Spearhead.
Yeah, have all four of us play it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's going to be that's my thoughts on on the fourth edition of Age of Sigmar. Like I said, I hope it does good. I'm cautiously optimistic so far.
Jay, do you have any final thoughts on this discussion?
I want you guys to play again. Not obviously immediately, but I would like you to play again once fourth ed comes out. I'm very curious to see what the new rules set and how it does for new players. Which I still consider y'all, especially like if we're gonna go like months without you playing again, that'd be one thing.
I picked the Tyranids.
You picked the Tyranids. You can technically do that. it's all bases. You'll just have to be Sylvaneth Tyranids. It'll be great.
I picked the Tyranids.
That's the closest thing I knew that had bugs.
I was about to say, like, the Sylvaneth don't play like the Tyranids at all.
No, but they do have a giant
It's like
beetle.
Skaven probably is the closest thing.
Yeah,
Ethan does like slivers, so
yeah, that is true.
So I am giant bugs that play just like giant rats.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing. Like
That sounds
like
terrifying
That's
a
a
little bit.
horde army.
You won't have an access to a rattling gun though,
Yeah.
because that is what it's called, a rattling gun.
Yeah, Skaven are cool because
I redact my choice.
Okay.
yeah, because Skaven basically are living in the future while everybody else is living in a steampunk.
I re-solidified my choice.
Yeah,
Okay, there you go.
they have automatic.
Skaven will be the other army in
Yeah.
the opening box. So
They have automatic weapons, whereas everybody else is just running off of like flintlock and shit like that. It's really funny.
or Aura Punk.
I
with
am
the,
the more.
with the storm.
It is the more advanced society. Gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, with Sigmar is more like they're either using bows and arrows or they're using magic lightning. So that it's a little bit different with that. But yeah. So yeah, that's our foray into making two of the people on this podcast play some miniature stuff.
he almost slipped up and called you a friend, Ethan. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I corrected
I heard
myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's about all we got from that.
See, I wasn't going to bring attention to it. So
Tune
that way-
in.
Yeah, but I was here, so I did.
Tune in, was it in a couple of months or something? Whenever they make us play,
Possibly June.
Magic.
Possibly.
sometime within the next 2 to 3 months.
yeah, just keep listening, and that episode will show up sometime. I
Yeah.
don't fucking know.
Ladies
So-
and gentlemen, Omnibus Commander, Magic the Gathering.
Yippee!
Omnibus Versus Volume 2. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, except no Fleetwood Mac.
We couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
Too expensive.
Yeah.
That's like, use a Led Zeppelin song. You got to like use it twice in the movie.
They don't usually license their shit out too. either.
But it was Thor, so they had to.
Whiskey and Wrestling. Michael Hill and Jason Holder providing you a week of news and views in the world of wrestling, along with a wonderful libation that you may want to pair it with, as opposed to pair it with, because don't give your parrots alcohol. Available on all major podcasting networks.
Silence Your Cell Phones, Jared Hubbard and Kevin Sheldon. They talk about movies, streaming, theater movies, TV shows you should watch. Maybe the Oscars. I don't know.
TV show movies.
TV show made for TV movies that Netflix has now cornered the market on. Check them out. Silence Your Cell Phones.
Fearology, a horror-based podcast hosted by J.L. Kite. He goes into his own personal relationship with the horror genre while also reviewing good and or bad horror movies. Check him out and wait for his next release on MILFs vs.
It
Zombies.
was released yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Check out his new release and also his future release, MILFs vs. Zombies, the review.
I'm never going to review MILFs versus Zombies.
Please don't talk about releasing on MILFs versus Zombies.
Check him out on Spotify.
I want to say MILFs versus Zombies too.
Electric Boogaloo.
There you go. Bearded Drums.
I was about to say I don't know any of the other ones. Y'all took off the
Stephen
ones I know.
Stephen
so.
Nelson II and Jarrett Taylor talking about all things drums from gear to gigs, along with live performances recorded by Mr. Nelson. Check it out on YouTube and all major podcasting platforms.
The Completed Podcast, a Magic the Gathering centered podcast hosted by Christopher Vega, Brandon Scott Tanner, and Brandon Smith. They go into deep dives into competitive Magic, the current meta of different formats. They talk about their own personal stories with the game. They talk about stories that are going towards conventions. Brandon Scott Tanner being a former pro player in the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. Give them a listen to the Completed Podcast.
And hey, if you're interested in Magic cards or anything with D&D or other role-playing games
Or Age of Sigmar.
or Age of Sigmar,
Or Lorcana.
they don't really have Age of Sigmar here.
They're a stockist and not a storm. So.
Yeah. Come on down to McNarb Gaming in Goshen, Mississippi, and check them out. Board games, they got that too. You need some paint, we got you covered. Speaking of Lorcana, I saw
Paint covered. I get it. It's good.
Speaking of Lorcana, I saw that they got in some more boxes of the new set Into the Inklands.
To the Inklands, they got more of it.
Aren't they? They're also talking about a Lorcana tournament sometime in
Yeah,
April.
I just found out from Greg Spanner. Is he the owner now? I can't remember if they've changed that
Crown
yet.
Prince.
Crown
Prince of Gaming at Madison.
That they will be having Lorcana some championship. It's not clear if it's regional or if it's store or whatever it is on the 20th of April. So if that piques your interest, come on down that day and try and get you some Stitch promos. They got some really cool artwork.
Get that Stitch.
Yeah. So they got that, D&D minis. They got a fuck ton of minis. If you can't find the mini here, Greg will personally give you $5.
Travelers on
the opinions of travelers on the
does not
Omnibus
reflect the
do not
opinions
reflect the
and or
ownership
actions
and or
of
non-ownership of
Greg
I
Magna
stand by what I said.
If you can't find the sleeves that you need, Greg will give you $5.
Once again,
Travelers on the Omnibus cannot reflect
That's
the
actually
news and
that'll be harder to do than finding the mini that you need. So yeah, come on down, check them out. They're in Gaucher. It's not that far, I promise.
We don't know what we're doing next week, but we're hoping one of them is going to be a CAT scan on Jody's lungs. I'm very scared for you, sir. Please don't die.
I'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Tune in next time where we find the black spots in Jody's lungs and his X-ray.
Please stop. You can stop now.
Are you
I'll
talking to
stop.
God?
Jesus.
Ethan, where did you go?
I'm gone.
Oh, thank God you came here. My shift is over. I can go back to being the devil.
No!
That's what you get. Now you have to be God now.
No!
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the way it is.
No!
That's a
Like Bruce Almighty finds out it's a curse too.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah, I
moon's
I don't
really
want to build
close.
the ark.
Didn't they?
You don't want
That was
to.
Evan Almighty.
motherfucker.
Well,
I thought
actually,
you said Evan Almighty.
if you're going,
No, I
if you're
said
going
Bruce
against
Almighty.
the
Bruce Almighty,
historically
gotcha.
accurate Noah movie, Storm Elementals built the ark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once more around the table, I'm James McCarthy.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
I'm Jody Kite.
I'm Brady Davis.
We're travelers on the Omnibus. Thank you for stopping by and enjoying the ride. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah. And then the outro music plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have got to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
That's the end. Not for me anyway.
This is the end for Jody, at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
Unless there's an alarm, then it's the end for Jay too.
Yeah.
Which one of these 20 keys opens the fucking door?
Stay tuned. At the beginning of the next
Great
episode,
listening
Jay
material.
will find the keys.